I hear things about fascia as a communication network.
Fascia is the fabric that holds us together. It looks, for all the world, like an antenna. What is it an antenna for? With 50 years of dealing with this thing, my answer is hunches. That it's your intuitive system.
There's the natural environment, there's the built environment, and now there's like this digital environment. And I'm noticing that so few people are adapted anymore to the natural world.
When you're out in the wild, you're really talking about Homo sapiens. I don't think we're talking about Homo sapiens anymore. I think that we have domesticated ourselves along with the chickens and the cats and the dogs and the horses and the cattle.
It's astonishing what we're capable of and what we're really like, and then what we've been kind of convinced that we are. My guest today is Tom Myers. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say he's one of the great minds on the earth today in the realm of biomechanics and human physiology, anatomy. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I was lamenting recently to some friends and to my wife that sometimes when you've built a mental map that's very rich in data points, it can be a little bit alienating. And I've been looking forward to this conversation because Tom's somebody with a big mental map, and it's a deep satisfaction to get to have a conversation with somebody like that. Also, I want to say, if you've heard over the last several years about myofascia, if you're into fitness, exercise, mobility, yoga, whatever it is, if you're into body work and you've heard about fascia, it's because of Tom Myers. He's really brought that work and that idea forward into culture in probably the biggest way that anybody has. And it's pretty amazing to see now how many people are teaching under that umbrella. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Daniel, it's great to be here.
It's really good to be here. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this a long time. I kind of want to just start off by talking a little bit about what your work has been over the years, but I really am interested in seeing what you're interested in today. But first, let me just say, being here in your library, there's a lot of books here I know and recognize that are incredible books. There's a lot more here that I just wish I had had the time or opportunity to read, but what a collection this is.
Yeah, this is 50 years of thinking about the body and how the human body in particular is. And with you in particular, Daniel, I think of us as paired units because I have that feeling for the wild and you're out there doing it. And my dedication this lifetime, I'm an urban creature, and I think we'll talk about this later. Homo domesticus is the species that needs the most work on the planet. So I've been working with that Homo domesticus, but with the wild one in mind, right? Mind, because it's the wild one that set our genes, both the genes of the food that we eat and the genes of the movement that we do. But instead now we have been domesticated like some of the other animals around us.
But it's like the wild variant gives us like a template almost, right? It's kind of, I always say, if you wanted to take care of a domesticated animal, it's helpful to know the wild progenitor, what its needs are, what it eats, how it lives, to inform you at least how to raise the domesticated
that all
animal.
those people are gone.
All
those people who, well, most of the people, maybe you found them. Maybe you found them out in the people who are surviving. I had an old woodsman here when I was young. I hired him to help me with the aquaculture project that we have here, and he could survive on tea-berry and all kinds of things that you probably know about in the woods, where I would die shortly and miserably in the woods. But the problem that I've been addressing myself to is, we have all of these humans living in a world to which they were not adapted. And I think of you as out there exploring what would happen if we hadn't adapted, if we were wild humans, and that's a really valuable exploration, and I'm so glad you're doing it, because I'm not doing it, because I'm running around from city to city. Here are all these, you go back to the 1800s, and don't quote me on the figures, but it was something like 95% of the people lived on a farm. And now 3% of the population takes care of our food needs. And the other 97% are pursuing something else in the city. We're out here in Maine. I don't know what your life is like where you live, but you see what a beautiful place I live in. I am governed by my computer, by my phone, by the daily things of the business that I'm still running at 76. And I could give all that up and go back to the wild. I'm not willing to do that. I really love the human experiment in spite of all the numbskullery that is going on right now. I love the human experiment, and I would like to see it continue. I do see that our bodies, our minds, and our feelings, and probably our spirit, I'm not qualified, have all been shrunk in the last bit of the domestication of human beings. And so what are we going to do about that? How do we fulfill the needs of our children, their genetic needs, and still live in an urban environment? Because I don't see, we can talk about that, but I don't see how everybody rewilds. Not in this current moment. Not in this current moment.
The situation's gotten so dire, it's like we can't keep kicking the can down the road, unfortunately. I think we've like run out of like runway for kicking the can, and so it's like we've got to start getting serious about dealing with it. There's a lot you said I want to pick apart. One of the things I wonder what it would be, I wonder if you've ever had the opportunity to work with indigenous people who still are somewhat close to their life way, people who, like there's still some pockets in the world, right? South America, New Guinea, off the coast of India, where there is like natural humans, even uncontacted people in some of these places, which is amazing to think about. But then you're also hearing about them getting phones and internet and how quickly their life way's changing. And I sort of imagine like if we lost all the dogs on the planet, we could go to gray wolves and tease dogs back out of that genome. But what happens when all of the natural people are gone? It's like, that's just like you said, lost, and like we won't know what they were even like, what their bodies are even like. Do any of you or any of the therapists you've worked with, have you got to work with people who haven't spent their life in the built environment?
I have literally gotten to work on 2 or 3 of those people in my life. And I don't have enough experience to say, this is what is the difference between wild humans and tame humans. I look at a tribe, if I think about a tribe, not everybody in the tribe needed to be a hunter.
Right.
We needed cooks, we needed bottle washers, we needed, well, not bottles, but you know what I mean. There's all kinds of roles in the tribe. So I was born short-sighted when I was born in an era where that short-sightedness could be corrected in various ways. But if I were in a tribal life and I were short-sighted, then I would be the firekeeper or something where you don't need long sight. But you wouldn't take me out on a hunting party because I couldn't see the quarry. And so I think that we probably there isn't a human that was suited to the old environment. There were lots of different kinds of humans, and some people in the tribes really needed to have big muscles, but not, the sprinters. Look at your sprinters, they don't have big muscles, they have wiry bodies. So is there somebody in your tribe who's wiry that we can send a message over the mountain to the other village? So no, I don't think there's one type that's adapted to the old life. I think there were a variety of types that were adapted to the old life, and we see the remnants of those old types now, but they're all domesticated.
Something I've identified and I talk about in my workshops is I look at the world, as the world as having like 3 distinct buckets, or the 3 worlds. There's the natural environment, there's the built environment, and now there's like this digital environment. And I'm noticing that so few people are adapted anymore to the natural world. Everybody's well adapted, I shouldn't say well adapted, everyone's adapted to the built environment, and more, especially young people, are very adapted to the digital environment. But it's like the further you go this way, the harder it is. And I always note how we have all these TV shows about people who are in the wild who have to figure out how to stay alive until they can get rescued back to the built environment. Because we're now looking at the
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Well, because they're never about like them staying there and setting up a sustainable life. It's always like we're just till we can get rescued, right, or something like that. Because I think there's a deep fear of that, because we view our own environment as being like a foreign world, kind of like as if we're astronauts and not from here, you know, and like that's the degree of the domestication. But maybe you could speak a little bit to how the built environment has reshaped us or changed us, or maybe we haven't reshaped and it's all pathology. I'm kind of curious, like how you see from your unique perspective how our bodies are being impacted by the built space. versus the natural world.
Good. I need to build into that just for a sec. If we go back to where there wasn't a separation between us and the rest of the natural world, we have to go back about 6 million years, really. And the first thing that we did, and we were discussing this earlier, and we might come back to it, is stand up. And our psychobiology changed with standing up. Everybody that had our basic vertebrate structure of a spine and 2 sets of limbs and a head on the front, that basic structure, the line of sight and the line of motion and the line of the spine and the line of the digestive system are all the same, which makes sense. Oh, yeah.
Right? When you said the line, like from the beginning of the tube to the end of the tube, lined up with that too.
Yeah. Right. It gets curly Q in the middle. But,
sure.
But us, when we stood up, when we took the hip, which was really flexed, here's the spine of a cheetah, here is a horse, and here is the femur. The knee is right up against the rib cage.
Yeah.
If your knee is right up against the rib cage, you're really flexed. A horse never comes to this.
Yeah. Yeah, you try to take your dog leg like that.
Sure, the horse will come up
back,
like this,
right?
and then it will come back down again. Because it can't stand up on 2 legs.
Yeah.
When you stand up on 2 legs, you take your nose away from the ground.
Wow, yeah.
So the world of smells is no longer the world you live in. You need to smell fruit, you need to smell other chimps, you need to smell what's up there in the thing, but you're not down on the floor of the forest where, look at your dog. I went walking with the dog this morning, had to get the female and, all that stuff. Right. And we don't do that.
Right.
And if you put your hand on the bridge of your nose, your hand is covering your frontal lobe. Your finger is coming down at the end between your frontal lobe and your parietal lobe at the sagittal suture. Your frontal lobe was your nose brain, your rhinencephalon.
Ah, okay.
So we didn't need so much of a nose brain when we stood up and went up in the trees, which we're pretty sure if you I don't want to go on evolutionary theory, but
that's the current story we're telling.
We see, the best story we're telling is we evolved from the old world monkeys with their collarbones. We have a collarbone too. A cheetah doesn't have a collarbone. And so coming up into there, we already divorced ourselves from the animal world slightly by standing up. That happened to monkeys too. And they are somewhat social, somewhat divorced from that. But that's not much of a divorce. But it really is a change of suddenly your spine is like this, your digestive system is like this, your line of motion is forward. So what does that do to your psychobiology? No self-respecting, and this is taking too long to set up, I'm sorry, but no self-respecting animal walks into the world with their breasts, their belly, their genitals, and their face all up front. Yeah. Right? It's the first thing I'm going to hit if I come is your soft underbelly.
Right.
So we're protective. Yeah. So that whole psychology of safety and protection comes in when you expose your soft underbelly to the world, which we do 16 hours a day.
Right.
Compared. So standing up was the first one that changed our psychobiology away from the natural. The second one came 600,000 years ago, and that's fire.
Yeah.
We're the only animal that controls fire. Right. What makes us unique? We control fire. Yeah. That came in around 600,000 years ago, and in archaeology, in fossil hunting, you find ashes of fires in human habitations really quickly across the globe. Fire was such a good idea for humans. Cooked food, that's another discussion. What I'm thinking about is how did it change our bodies to have fire? Well, what are you before you have a fire? You are a monkey sleeping in a cave or under some kind of shelter, hoping that the saber-toothed tiger finds somebody else tonight. But after you have a fire, everybody goes to sleep in complete and utter safety and peace. 2 people stay up, and if the saber-toothed tiger comes on, they pull a branch out of the fire, wave it at the spider, and the saber-toothed tiger says, I'll go in search of something a little easier. Yeah. So safety happens when you have fire. And then what's the second thing? What do we do around a fire? Dance and talk. So the whole culture of these things that we're celebrating in those few tribes that are not left, who are probably dancing around the fire, and maybe they have a machete and maybe they don't, but they're still
some tools that might have washed up on the beach. Right, like some boat wreckage.
That us with fire really, standing up is one thing, but us with fire really separates us from the thing. And the lights that we're doing now are an extension of that control of fire. Okay, the third one that really affected our bodies and our movement is agriculture. Up until 10,000 years ago, you foraged for your food or you hunted for your food, as you do. And that was 10,000 years ago that started, but was as few as 3,000 or 1,000 years ago for some people.
Yeah, I often point out when we say Neolithic revolution, it sounds like everybody just got on board, but I like to point out there's still pockets of resistance. It's not even a complete revolution yet.
The internet wasn't so good in those days. Yes, it was took a long time, and everybody started doing farm work. And what was that phrase that you talked before we started of each generation?
Shifting baseline syndrome.
Shifting baseline syndrome. So once we get into the agricultural era, everybody was born into that shifted base. Everybody thought, oh, that's how we do it. But there are whole books that are arguing this, and I'm not going to go on very long about it, that wheat enslaved us, that rice enslaved us, that cotton enslaved us. And so these products came up out of the agricultural era. Well, what do you have when you have an agricultural era? All of a sudden, you're not moving around. You're not a nomad anymore. So you need soldiers to protect your property and to protect the silos.
All that grain,
All that grain. You need cats, which was a source of a lot of diseases. You need cats to get the mice who were eating, the rats who were eating your grain.
I've had an oversight about that part, about the cats. That's interesting, because of the rodents.
Yeah, because of the rodents. And so you need soldiers, merchants, serfs, landowners, that whole caste system, and our class system, the English class system, that's all around.
You need slaves too, you know. Slaves, I mean, I point out, because it's very interesting, like with Göbekli Tepe, that site they say is about 14,000 years old, and it's kind of like the oldest site we know. And the weird thing about it is like, it was built by hunter-gatherers, but that's what they think. But then the first domestication of wheat is only like 50 miles away. And I'm like, kind of feels like they needed to figure out the wheat growing to feed the people that were doing the work, because you kind of can't have people building cities all day when you hunt and gather. Like everybody needs, it's all hands on deck when you hunt and gather. So anyway, I would suggest that the slave trade, which is the biggest it's ever been right now around the world, right? It's the largest slave trade there's ever existed right now. Yeah, there's more people enslaved right now than at any other period in human history.
Because of the numbers.
There's like about 50 million people or so in active forms of slavery, whether it's the sex trade or it's the brick making or something. You know, it's like stuff going on all different types. But this trade of humans, I think, is somewhat agricultural based, because you have all this division of labor. Anyway, I'm not trying to get you off track.
No, you don't want to, in a hunting gathering society, you don't want to gather a whole bunch of people that you now have to feed.
Yeah, you got to go gather for them too. Like that's a lot of work.
Keep them in prison.
But once you have grain and you have surplus of food, it starts to make a lot of sense. You send them out to the fields to do that while you administrate from the top, right?
Right. But even those people out in the fields, they are still walking to the fields. They are doing rhythmic movement most of the days. And they do varied movement also. That ends when we get to the industrial era, and name that one when you will. 200 years ago for England, 100 years ago for China, 50 years ago for China, etc. The world is industrializing still, but we went into the industrial era where we make things. If you talked about education and the body 150 years ago, all the literature is written in the language of agriculture. We want to have a nice crop of students. And what do we have to feed them? And how do we water them to get a nice crop of students? That is not the way they talk today. Students are a product, and we need to make sure that they go through the right industrial processes to come out the right product.
So true.
And so, again, it's that same thing. If the generation is born into the industrial era, you take it as the baseline.
And the technology always informs, I've noticed, like anatomically. I see so many of these books here. We could see it in these books, like Leonardo's depicting the body as ropes and pulleys, because that's the dominant technology of the time. I often joke about how when I was growing up, the body was a car. You fed it the fuel to burn the fuel as a car, because we were thinking of, now everybody's like, the body's like a computer, and we're hearing all about your brain's like a supercomputer. We always seem to relate ourselves, rather than relate the external technology to what we're like, we relate ourselves to the external technology of the time.
And your brain is, when I was starting, when Rene Descartes started this idea. The newest machine, the most exciting machine in the world in the 1600s was a vacuum tube. You, like at the bank when you put that little thing over to the teller. That's what he thought when he saw nerves. He realized a signal was being carried up. Oh, it heats your finger and that travels up a tube. It was like a vacuum tube. Wow. Because that was the most complicated technology. When I was growing up, we had no computers, so the brain was a telephone system. And then it became a computer system, and then it became a dual processor, and then it became what do they call, hologram. And now, I would say, in my work, now that I've been doing this 50 years, yes, I know a lot about anatomy, but a body is more like a meme than it is like a machine, or even maybe like a plant. At least that's what we need to explore now, the body as a meme, as a pattern. Because you are not the stuff that you're made of. The urban myth is you change your body every 7 years, change all the molecules in your body every 7 years. I just recently learned that's not true.
No.
Most of it, you change much faster than 7 years.
Considering testosterone replacement therapy, but haven't taken that first dose, I want to encourage you to consider an alternative. Here's why. Not only is TRT essentially a one-way street, meaning once you start, you're most likely never coming off it, leaving you beholden to that pharmaceutical for the rest of your life. There's also a lot of complications associated with it. Many TRT patients have to manage estrogen conversion, blood pressure, and even red blood cell count. And that's in addition to the issues with mood, disposition, and even mild to severe acne. Why not give pine pollen pure potency a try first before committing to a pharmaceutical regimen that requires a full-time management strategy? Go over to Surthrival.com to check out our pine pollen pure potency, the formula I developed for myself as my own go-to testosterone supplement. Pine pollen gives me the edge I'm looking for without the high health cost associated with TRT. Again, it's pine pollen pure potency at Surthrival.com.
Skin is changing all the time. You have all new molecules in your stomach lining every 3 weeks. You have a whole new liver in terms of molecules every 6 weeks. That's why when your uncle stops drinking, he
not in terms
really
of
fast.
cells, but in terms of molecules.
Yes, the molecules are changed over because your liver is rapidly turning over.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
But there are probably molecules in my Achilles tendon that have been there since I was 12, because your fascia is so inert.
Not vascularized.
It's not vascularized, so it depends on seepage. And so those very stable collagen molecules are very stable and they stay there. And so those molecules,
they hold the pattern.
I'll probably die with those molecules from my puberty time in my very, very, thoracolumbar fascia, iliotibial tract, Achilles tendon, those places where the fascia
stiffest, oldest stuff.
Yeah. So it doesn't need to turn over.
Right.
It's stable. But
wow. What could you I'm sure you're quite good at this point, but for listeners who they hear the term fascia, I know they hear it. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
It must be cool to see. I mean, my understanding is you learned from Ida Rolf.
Yes.
But then you took the work to the world in a way that she, did a different time.
Yeah,
right?
different time.
But it must be amazing to see the impact. I don't know from where you sit if you see it, but I mean, I see it everywhere.
You were very kind in your introduction. I am one of many people who are doing this. And
your book, Anatomy Trains, is the book everybody, when you have the conversation about myofascia, everybody wants to talk about your book. It's like the foundational it's like the foundational text, I think, for most of this work today. Although there are so many other incredible voices, I not to downplay that, but I think what you've taught about tensegrity and about fascia, was pretty revolutionary, and the impact is now visible.
The book was published in 2001. It's now 2026, and 25 years.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with how much this idea has been taken in and taken up, and I think it speaks to what a wonderful writer I am, and then it also just speaks to this is the time in which holistic things are being seen.
Yeah.
So the fascia is the fabric that holds us together. Without it, you would be a big puddle at your feet because all the water would fall. So fascia is designed to keep your water up. Well, what about my bones? Well, your bones, yes, are absolutely the solid thing. They're not as solid as people think they are because they're changing all the time. Remember when we were just talking about the cells changing over, your bones actually change over quite rapidly.
Okay.
They're full of blood vessels, so so the bones change over fairly rapidly.
You think that part of
cartilage that doesn't?
Well, sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that a lot of times they think of a bone and they picture a baked bone that has all of the soft tissue removed so that there's just
this brittle thing that I found, this is a deer bone.
So people think that's what's in my body. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but if I were to take a living bone,
yes,
2 of them, let's say I took 2 identical living bones, I put one in a bottle of vinegar, I put one in an oven, right? The one in the vinegar is going to dissolve out all the apatite, the calcium phosphate, and I'm going to be left with this like rubbery tying a knot thing.
Let's not say rubbery, let's say leathery.
Okay, so something with soft
tissue.
tissue.
Like the leather in your belt.
Okay.
Is mostly collagen from the skin of a cow.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And the leather in your bone, you can take that.
Yeah.
If you leave it in a vinegar, you'll be able to tie a knot. But it is the fascial bone.
Okay.
Your bones inside your body are equally both. Now it depends on your age as to whether they really are equally, but they are both. So in a young body, you can bend the bones.
Right. Kid falls out a window, bounces, no injury, and you're like, that would break me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So back to it, I think a lot of times people imagine inert dead bone inside themselves, just because they haven't seen. You know, it's really different when again, hunting gives you such an insight because you're taking these bones out all the time and you see what they're like and they're so alive.
I'm laughing because I don't hunt the humans I take apart, but I've taken apart quite a number of humans.
Yeah, so and you famously, more of your work, you famously lead cadaver labs where people get to actually disassemble formerly living humans and see these fascial connections, right? And dissection labs.
The organs, the nerves, everything. That's all. So to continue from there, something has to hold your blood vessels, your nerves, your organs, and the muscles on your bones has to hold it in place. So nature developed a biological fabric. That biological fabric is present in salmon, but you know that fish aren't as tough as other meat. So as soon as you walk out onto the land, plants use cellulose as their basis for what they're doing. We use collagen because it's pliable and tensilely very strong, but it's mobile. So we can use collagen as plants use cellulose as what has been for 500 years thought of as the packing material, the peanuts for your body, of just, that's just the stuff that holds it. Cut that away and throw it away so we can see the interesting things. And so because we didn't have systems thinking so much in our brain, and we were really focused on the nervous system and the circulatory system. If you look at medicine, what we call modern medicine is almost exclusively focused on the circulatory system. They can inject in here, up the other end, but they're getting it into your circulatory system. Food as medicine is another way of changing the chemistry. So we call it medicine, but it's almost all chemistry. 200 years ago, Freud, organized a science of what's going on in this set of representations in here. And we went through all of this, id and superego, and all the stuff that he did with the bourgeoisie of the Vienna of the 1800s. And then now we've applied that to a much wider psychology.
We'll leave out his nephew for right now.
We'll leave out his nephew just at the moment.
Thanks for the fluoride, Ed.
And but that's come into a science in 200 years. Medicine is certainly a very well developed tree of knowledge. And we have a third one, which should be built around the fascial system, but has been instead built around the musculoskeletal system. My objection to musculoskeletal system is it leaves the fascia out. And that's what's joining the muscle to the skeleton, but it's doing more than that. It's surrounding and infusing your brain. It has got a bag, wrong side. It's got a bag and very fine fiber going all the way through your liver. So your fascia is everywhere. if I could make everything invisible except your nervous system, you'd see if I made everything invisible except my own nervous system, a talent I don't have, you would see my body sitting here because there's nerves going right up to the surface. There'd be lots of them here and lots
Your
of
basic
here.
shape as nerve cells.
As nerves, right? There wouldn't be so many back here, but there's plenty here. You know, the polyvagal theory, your ventral vagus area is a very social area that we have a lot of nerve endings in. If I could go zap and make everything invisible except my circulatory system, you've probably seen that in Body Worlds, you know, where they inject the latex and you see the exact shape of the body in the capillaries. And nobody has done with the musculoskeletal system what we need for that third system, which is the fabric system, the fiber system. If I disappeared everything but that, you'd see my iliotibial band very clearly. If I was a woman and had breasts, it would be light and filmy because you have to have a lot of fluid flowing through breasts. You don't want a lot of fascia. In fact, a lot of fascia in breasts is a fibrotic condition, and that's what you don't want. So glands have very little fascia. The liver doesn't have a lot of fascia in it. The pancreas.
Yeah, because you can take a liver and just pull it apart. A raw liver, it's got very little. You can tell when you butcher it.
And a raw pancreas is hard to find in the human sometimes. Of course, depends on what they've been eating. A lot more variation in the diet in the animals that I dissect than
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Anyway, the fascia holds us together, and we've certainly thought about the iliotibial band and the plantar fascia and things like that, but then you get particularized. So, oh my God, the bottom of my foot hurts, and somebody tells me you have plantar fasciitis. So I go and I show the doctor, that plantar fasciitis. But I get much more help for plantar fasciitis almost never by working on the foot. I will work on the foot so the client knows that I heard them and that I understand and that I'm doing
and it feels good.
And it feels good, or it doesn't feel good because they've got plantar fasciitis. But I'm going to get the problem solved in the lower leg, in the deep calf muscles, in the hamstrings, or in the suboccipital muscles under here. They're all part of the superficial back line, the kinetic chain that runs up the back of the body. So these chains are really useful in chronic things because your body distributes strain through the fascia.
Yeah, and the fascia is not discrete pieces.
No.
It's just one, like it could be my foot's being affected by something in my occiput because it's one large.
And because, as we spoke earlier, we are so sure about the mechanistic description of the body that we're looking for those parts as if they were parts of a Ford F-150.
Yeah, right.
Right? But we're not put together in discrete parts.
Right. If the tailpipe is the problem on your Ford F-150, you just replace the tailpipe. It's not like, oh, maybe it's coming from the wheel, right? It is distinct parts.
Although if you've been chasing electrical problems around an old car, not these days, but they could lead you around the body too, of your car. But the body definitely is this one thing, and plantar fasciitis is a result in the plantar fascia of strains that have been focused instead of easily distributed. So we all know, we've seen kids, or you yourself, you take a bad tumble and somebody says, Jesus, and you go, no, I'm fine. Because everything just was a tensegrity. Everything went ka-choom, boom.
Yeah.
So everything moved a little and nothing moved too much.
Yep.
When one of these breaks, when one of these breaks, when one of these breaks, just any of the units in your body breaks, then this would be a joint and a bone and a ligament, I don't know what. But then all of a sudden your physio or your orthopod might be focused on the joint that's broken, but it's only going to work again in the context of the whole.
Yeah.
And that's less true with acute injury because it's acute and it just happened and it hasn't distributed yet.
Yeah.
But if you try to use the same techniques on an injury that's been there for 10 years that you're using on somebody who just sprained their ankle, you're not going to have much fun.
Yeah.
Because that tendency to sprain the ankle has distributed to the pelvis and to the chest, and it takes a while to get it out. Now, is coming to me for body work the only way you can get it out? No. You can use yoga, you can use CrossFit, you can use any of those things to move your body and get out of the
Can you? All right, I'm gonna get real personal here. I'm a train wreck. I'm a train wreck, and I'm at a point where the problem is I love to train, right? So I'm doing several hours of like steady state type cardio stuff, locomotive stuff, plus strength training, plus mobility work throughout my week. But I know I'm loading dysfunction very often. And I've got a major twist running through me because I rotationally broke my tib fib in the mountains in a winter day and had to be sort of rescued out walking on an ice axe splint. I got a cast. I didn't do any rehab. They wanted to do the bolts in my leg. I said, no, just push the bones back together. I'm glad I did that, but I didn't do any physiotherapy. I was poor. I didn't know better. I wasn't thinking about the future. You know, I was in my early 20s. Now, like my wife ran a half marathon the other day. I can run a half marathon, but at the end, I'm hurting. 5K, I got to kind of stick to that zone because my hips just are so imbalanced. Over distance, I accumulate. If I do a heavy squat, I'm just not balanced right. So I'll watch other people and it's like, man, I'm so jealous. I wish I could just do. My wife is like structurally perfect. She grew up doing synchronized swimming, so she developed her whole myofascial system in the water. You know, so it's like a perfect system. And I'm just all these dysfunctions. And for years, I've gone to different therapists, and two things happen. One is I start to doubt whether they have any idea what they're doing. And the second thing is they always want me to stop training because they want me to like let what they're doing be the major stimuli. And then I'm like, man, I'm really fearful at my age of losing what muscle mass I have, what cardiovascular fitness I have. So now I'm going, I need to get fixed, and all my methods of trying to fix myself are temporary band-aids, right? So I'm saying all this, one, selfishly, but two, I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this are like, oh man, I kind of have some of that going on. And what do I do? I mean, it is like extremely uncomfortable at times in my body. I have other times where I'm okay, but I mean, recurring injuries, recurring the same stuff over and over again. And it feels almost sometimes like kind of hopeless. Like, I'm like, am I going to die like this? And then I talk to somebody like you, I'm like, maybe what do I do? Like, where do I even start? Where's a person start who knows? Like my wife is, like I said, she, not like she never gets injuries, but like she's not any issues like that. But I know.
If she does get an injury, her body is set to remodel that injury, to repair that injury.
Correct. I look at myself without clothes on in the mirror, I see I'm all twisted and imbalanced. Like it's visibly obvious to me that I'm twisted. So,
I am sorry for the answer back to you. And it's hopelessness because spatial medicine, the medicine of chemistry is pretty well developed. You can argue whether they're going down the right road on something.
Right.
And the language of psychology is pretty developed. I think that has more to go too. But the language of our body is very poorly developed.
Yeah.
If you go to an orthopod, you will get a surgical solution. If you come to me, you will get a manual therapy solution. If you go to your local yoga teacher, you'll get a yoga solution. And we all haven't started talking to each other, and instead we're talking shit about each other, which is really bad, right?
Yeah.
There are people for whom CrossFit is the cat's whiskers. There are people for whom CrossFit is not the appropriate thing. So is CrossFit good?
Right.
For some.
But everybody thinks their thing is the solution, which is the challenge.
Which is the for everybody thing.
Yeah,
and that's not true. We need, as with medicine, not every, Ozempic isn't, I don't need Ozempic.
Right.
So just because it's the new drug on the market, I don't need to take it.
Yeah.
So you have to judge for yourself. Now, if you are in this case of you're now in your 40s or your 50s, you have reached the limits, you've had a couple of injuries, you recovered from them, but the body isn't what it used to be, then looking at yourself in the mirror and taking that kind of inventory is something that we don't do for our children. Every child should get a standing bending test at 7 to see whether they have an incipient scoliosis. When all those scolioses are discovered is when the kid's 13 or 14 and the growth hormone, suddenly the bone's growing, they see one sleeve is different from the other or one hem is different from the other. And so then they will go in and get a heroic, terrible thing where the spine is straightened and a rod put into it. Now that will be considered barbaric in 50 years.
Yeah, it sounds like Civil War era surgery to me when I hear that.
But it's still
that's the way.
The treatment of choice for bad scoliosis. But if you took scoliosis at 7, we need to have this as an experiment for me to say it with the definitude that I'm saying it right now. But my strong belief is if we took children at 7 and we put them through a KQ assessment, we give them an IQ assessment, sooner or later we're going to give them an EQ assessment. What's your emotional intelligence? I don't know about you, but I hire for emotional intelligence. I can teach you a skill. I can't teach you this.
That's so true.
Or it's going to take a lot longer to teach you this. So, but KQ is something, you know, I'm pointing to my belly because the Dantian is your center of gravity, so that's the center of the fascia system.
K, kinesthetic?
Yeah, KQ meaning kinesthetic
Yeah.
intelligence, emotional intelligence, and intellectual intelligence. And you can argue whether the IQ tests are really measuring.
I might throw digestive intelligence in there too.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes.
Yeah, but anyway. So.
Yeah, that's the old matriarchal intelligence, and we see evidence of that in the body all the time. Excuse me for this little side note. In front of your organs, you have an apron.
Yeah, the omentum.
It's called the omentum, and it hangs from your stomach and your large intestine, and it generally hangs down about as far as your pubic bone.
Hunters call it the caul fat.
The caul fat?
Yeah, that's like if you're going to cook with it, you can wrap. It's fatty, so you can wrap meat in it and roast it. Yeah.
Routinely, if somebody's had a surgery, they just cut it off.
Oh my gosh! And out?
And out. Yeah. You don't need it. It's like your gallbladder. You don't need it.
Really?
Okay. Anyway, when we open up, so sometimes the omentum is gone. When the omentum is there, it will have migrated to the organ in trouble. It will be over here on the small intestine, or up on the liver, or over here on the spleen. It's amazing. It moves. And it moves to the organ in trouble because fat is the mother of the body. So this is a very fatty, as you just pointed out, organ. And it goes to the organ in trouble and wraps it in fat cells, which are healing cells.
Wow.
It's your body is doing its best to maintain the equilibrium.
Right.
It's just we feed it and we live in an environment that doesn't support it. Back to your problem that I do agree with you is a universal thing. I am very lucky. I get a lot of body work and I think a lot about these things. So I'm 76 and I feel pretty spry.
And you look amazing and you move really well and it's incredible. Like it shows, you know, like your aging strategy is obviously working.
But I've been lucky. You know, other people are under such stress or, you know, have children in trouble or parents in trouble or finances in trouble or relationships in trouble that they don't have the leisure to keep themselves this way. So I feel lucky in that way. But I do think it's really, really possible to keep yourself much more mobile. I'm 75. I would still call myself middle-aged in terms of not in terms of my face or my skin, but in terms of moving about. I just don't have that much.
You picked your foot up and showed it to the camera. That's not a typical thing that people do in their 70s.
But you have to find a good worker from the outside. It is very hard to do these things from the inside so far. There are books like Kelly Starrett's or mine or others that you might look at to say, okay, how could I look better, or how could I train better, or what am I missing? But to unravel the kinds of twists and turns that you're talking about, there is no exercise program for that.
Yeah. And we have, sorry to interrupt you here, but I feel like I have a tremendous amount of blind spots. So like I feel like I need somebody who can see it from the outside, because from inside, it's like if we're talking about my emotional issues, it's like, well, it's very hard for me to pinpoint them all. I know some of them, but the ones I'm blind to, I don't know because I'm blind to.
So
and the patterns are like that.
I'm going to interrupt you now because it's exactly the same thing in the body. You have, let's call them number 1 areas. They're available to me when I wake up in the morning and I can do this, right? But if I fix my arm here, I can actually get a much better range of motion out of my pectoral by doing this. Call that area that got stretched a number 2 area. So this is my number 1, but
it's not under muscular control. It's range that you have, but it's not under.
I have to have an outside force to make it stretch.
Right.
So, sorry, Christian. This is how far I can open my legs. This is where I'm screwed up. As a number 1. Anything from here, I'm starting to go. And if you said, that's all in your mind, Tom, if only you could let that go, you too could do the splits. Like the yoga teachers in your class. If I did those splits, I would be in the hospital because I would tear my perforating arteries that are going through to my adductor magnus. there is this tissue, and
it's real.
And it's real, and it gets thicker where you broke your bones.
Okay.
It's going to involve the muscular tissue. There'll be more fascia, scar tissue in where you broke the bones because that tissue was disturbed, and then you put it in a cast. You didn't have the same experience. So
your muscles are different, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Sure.
Some of the tone in a muscle is because individual fibers are firing to keep that tone, right? If I get more tone, it's because I have more muscles, fibers that are firing at any given time that keep that muscle under tone, right? But then I have some psychological control over that. So if I'm stressed and tense, I might feel like I'm so tight, but it actually could let some of that go by just,
yes.
But the connective tissue, once it's fixed in place, that isn't under that same kind of innervative control, right? So it needs to either be manually stretched or moved.
Yeah, you can use tools, you can use somebody else's hand, you can use a doorknob.
Right.
Yoga.
But I can't just relax it mentally. It needs to be remodeled.
There is nothing you can do to remodel the fascia from your mind.
Yeah, okay.
Except to let go of tension, and that will cause the fascia to remodel
over longer stretches of time.
Mm-hmm. If I do this to you guys, sorry. If I hold my pelvis out in front of my feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stand here without tension in the back of my legs. So I'm exporting that signal to the back of my legs. It also has something to do with the fact that I was born into the wrong family, so I'm alert all the time. So it has an emotional thing to it. And we tend to do that exporting to our body with any of the stress that we have. It doesn't stay around. I know you think it's staying around in the mind, but it's being exported down to your muscles.
The body,
So I'm strong, a really common one, right? So people take their poor rib cage and they go, and they feel weak, and they go, no, I'm strong.
Right.
So I've just recruited a whole bunch of muscles here, and to maintain that thing that I'm really strong, Daniel, I am strong, I have to export tension, export signals from my brain that ends up being tension in the muscles. The fascia says, okay, if you're going to stand with your pelvis way forward and your rib cage way back, you don't want muscles to do that because you're not using them as muscles, you're using them as straps, and your body will, fibroblasts, the one that make the fascia, will come and lay down more fascia. And
just like with bones.
Just like with
remodels.
Bones.
So instead of osteoblasts and osteoclasts, you have fibroblasts and fibroclasts that will. So if I have tension on there, it'll lay down more fiber, so I don't need to hold the tension. It will hold the tension. And if I start to change that pattern, will osteoclasts come in and remove some of that fiber?
We don't have fibroclasts.
Oh, we don't. Okay.
So just for listeners who may
correcting the record
familiar with this terminology, osteoblasts make bone, and osteoclasts eat bone. And they're not the smartest bulbs in the chandelier, so they only have this one commandment. And the osteoblasts have one commandment: thou shalt make bone under the periosteum. So maybe I have plantar fasciitis where I tear my fascia. That's plantar fasciitis. A lot of people will tell you, I got plantar fasciitis right here on the front of my heel. The plantar fascia becomes the saran wrap around the bone, the periosteum around the bone. It's the same. We divide it into two different things.
It's one continuous sleeve.
God didn't. It's even through the heel bone, but let's leave that alone for a while now. If this gets pulled off the heel bone, this hand is the heel bone, my arm is the plantar fascia, this hand is the periosteum around the bone. Okay, I tug on the plantar fascia. I pull the periosteum away from the bone. And there are these cells in here, the osteoblasts, and they say, oh, God told us, fill in under the periosteum. So they fill in under the periosteum and they build a bone spur.
Yeah.
There's nothing painful about a bone spur. It's your lateral plantar nerve coming in on the side that happens to be under that. So when that bone grows, you're stepping on a nerve. We have to solve that problem.
Right.
But it's not the bone spur.
So, okay, I always thought osteoclasts laid down bone. No, osteoblasts. I feel like they should be. When I hear blast, I think that should be removed. Okay.
Blasting, okay.
So osteoblasts, I always thought that they laid down bone wherever there was a piezoelectrical charge from the crystal of the bone being deformed. That's what I've always heard.
They will lay down more calcium apatite in the areas where there's compression, and they will lay down more collagen where there are areas of tension, because tension goes through your bones too.
Wow, okay.
Right? So but the osteoblasts are mainly responsive to the space under the periosteum. So your scapula starts life as a bag, and the osteoblasts come in there and fill up the bag until there's
scapula.
Scapula, yeah.
Wow,
Bones
that's
on your feet,
wild.
like that.
That's wild.
The long bones are different, but some of these bones. Osteoclasts, again, not the brightest bulbs in the chandelier, so they're sent forth also with one commandment of that bone which is not pressurized, of that thou mayest eat. But the bone that is pressurized, of that thou mayest not eat. And so when you load your bones with the training and the exercise that you're doing, which if you came to me, and we still haven't gotten to the osteopaths and body workers who could deal with these problems, but that's really what you have to do, is to go into somebody else to look at your number 3 areas, the areas you don't know at all, right? I know my number 1 areas. If I have a pain in my number 1 areas, that's easy to find. Number 2, send me to a yoga. Oh man, that really needs stretching. That's a number 2. I don't move the number 3 areas.
Yep.
Like when I was trying to do the splits, those are number 3 areas. I don't know.
They're like blind spots to your nervous system.
Right. So it's really hard to know your blind spots because you're looking. Yep. So somebody else, this is still the answer to your question of what do I do at 50 when I've got these nagging things, is get to somebody who knows that. There are wonderful chiropractors. There are chiropractors who will just knock your bones and tell you to come back next week. There are osteopaths who have become doctors and will hand you another prescription. There are osteopaths who really know their business in terms of manipulation, osteopathic manual manipulation. And there are various massage therapists and sports therapists who have gone and gotten extra knowledge of fascia and muscle and nerve and joint and everything. It's not just fascia that you need to know about, right? It's the whole schmear. And then there's people. Okay, I see the problem with this person, but he's already out there in the woods. Now, how could I take the style that this man has and add something that would get him towards, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you, to get that L5 and L4 to come up out of your pelvis a bit. No.
Is that specific to me?
Yeah.
What you just said? Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Give me something to work with. Yeah.
I'll show you before we but that's a thing that's really hard to do for yourself because you have spent your lifetime not knowing those places.
Yeah. That's what I'm like, one of the hardest, let me reframe that. One of the lessons that's hitting me the hardest in my late 40s is how serious the problem of not knowing what you don't know is. When you're young and so full of hubris, like you don't even care really. But now I'm like, I've had this experience so many times where you realize that you didn't know what you didn't know and how like foolish you feel after, where you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea how blind I was to all of this. And now I'm at this place where I'm becoming aware that these things are there. And I know there's a whole bunch of things I don't know, and I'm not sure, what do I do?
And people, the problem with the contemporary therapists and even contemporary trainers is that they will listen to their clients and do what the client says. If the client had the right analysis, they wouldn't have to come to you. They would have solved the problem. So I listen to what my clients say, and I don't believe a word of it. Because if they had the right story, they wouldn't need me. And they do need me, so they don't have the right story. So what can I add to that story? Because some of it's right, obviously, but some of it's not getting there. So you know the things that you know, and you know the things to do, but you don't know the places that you don't know in the this vast territory, which is your body. Yeah. I must say, I just got to put this in here as apropos of nothing, which is that I've been 50 years in this, and I am nowhere as close to the bottom. Wow. My brother is a painter, and he's now 85, I think, and he's still painting. God, I hope I get to the bottom of this before I die. And he's not going to, because it's painting, it's art, it goes everywhere. My other brother is a musician on the organ, and God, I still hope I can get these. 82, and can I get this Bach thing right? Yeah. And I play in kinesthesia, not in visual or auditory. I play in this one. And I'm not a dancer. I'm a terrible dancer. I'm a terrible sports person. I would probably flag if we went out in the woods and I tried to do what you do on a daily basis. But that I have not finished playing in that thing at all. I have not gotten to the bottom of it all. I just go into work. Most of my work is teaching now, not practicing.
Earlier in, did you think you were closer to like, because when I look at, I can relate to what you're saying.
When I came out,
I thought I had it all.
I was going to change the world with my wonderful rolfing thing that I had gotten from Ida Rolf. And you start out that way. You need to start out that way.
Yeah.
Doctors start out that way.
Yeah.
There's this incredible hubris from a lot of doctors, not all of them, coming out of medical school. I'm sorry, you just had a training.
Yeah.
You haven't started your career yet.
And how many patients have you had?
And they get a lot. They get a lot in the medical training, but it's also within a particular frame that I'm very glad not to have to work in that frame.
Yeah.
And if I were working in emergency medicine, you'd have to work in that frame. It's time is of the essence. But with these chronic things, we would have the time to, and I wish everybody would undertake this, but right now it's expensive, not paid for by your insurance, etc. But puberty is a great time to go through your body. I would love to see rolfing as I learned it as a puberty rite.
Yeah.
People would go through a series of sessions as part of going into high school or part of 8th grade or something like that, that when all those hormones are going on, that you even out the body, that you show people their number 3 places, and that happens sometime around puberty. And then,
could you give us like the haiku version of like what rolfing, like what's a complete rolfing session or series of sessions?
Yes, rolfing is deep body work. It has a reputation for being way too deep. That's the one where they scrape your muscles off the bones and make you scream about your mother. That's a fair enough characterization of what we were doing in the 1970s, but it's not a fair characterization of what we're doing now. We're really anatomically cognizant and movement cognizant, and we're trying to have people be able to use their bodies. We haven't even started talking about this yet, but when you're out in the wild, you're really talking about Homo sapiens. I don't think we're talking about Homo sapiens anymore. I think that we have domesticated ourselves along with the chickens and the cats and the dogs and the horses and the cattle.
I agree.
And the goats and the sheep. We got all those species that were amenable to being fed by us, and now we're enslaved to them or whatever. Cats have taken over the world.
They've got the easiest ride of all the domestic animals.
We built hospitals for them and everything. Anyway, I think that we're dealing with a different species now of Homo domesticus simply, and I don't know enough about genes to know whether the genes have changed. I do know the epigenetics have changed substantially. And a really easy example of that is our jaws are being born more narrowly than they used to be. There's the theory that we used to chew much more on unprocessed foods, so that you would never have gotten flour that was ground down to what you got now. You'd be chomping your bread.
My dentist and I have a joke that I have the teeth of a hunter-gatherer because I've used them as tools. Because that's the other thing is you work in a hide, you're working a stick, you're constantly using it as a third hand.
As a third hand, sure.
Which we don't do as much of now because we have so many tools. But like they get used. They get used. And so the jaw gets used, right? So
the jaw gets used, but that's one theory, and we can go off on how soft our food is. And maybe whether babies should have harder food. They're getting plastic things for babies to chew on. Give me a break. Just give them a carrot. Chew on that.
Where will they get their BPA, though?
I'm sorry, I lost the thread. What we were just talking about.
I think we were talking about, you were talking about how puberty is a great time.
Oh, no, but there's a second reason that jaws could be narrow, which is when you domesticate an animal, their jaws get narrower.
Yep.
Look at a bison, look at a cow. Jaws narrow. Look at a wolf, look at a dog. Look at a lion, look at a domesticated cat. We don't have pictures of people back there, but we have those tribes that you were talking about that are just barely met or as yet unmet in the Amazon or out in Indonesia somewhere. But So we don't really know what those people looked like, but we can be pretty sure from the jaws that we saw. The guy who wrote Exercise, Daniel Lieberman, his first thing was he went to Harvard. He was an anthropologist. He said, well, Harvard has a lot of skulls, so I'm going to study skulls. So he studied skulls and wrote a book called The Evolution of the Head, which if you want to go to sleep is a really difficult book, but I've gotten a lot from it. And what he found was hunter-gatherers needed no orthodontists.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter-gatherers needed no dentists.
Yeah.
There were a few people with caries. There were a few people with crooked teeth. That was a potential, but it wasn't the norm. Now almost every American child needs a $10,000 smile.
Mm-hmm.
$20,000
They
by
don't
now.
in England, though, for some reason. They just roll with it.
They just roll with the crooked teeth. But don't think that the cup of tea and the Bickies didn't have anything to do with it, because it does.
But I always think of that as like we know it's dysfunction, so we correct it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it's like a Band-Aid. It's like cover up for degenerative processes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's fair to say domestication is a degenerative process, or do you feel like it's an evolutionary process?
It was all the way back in 2008, 18 years ago now, that I founded Surthrival, a boutique-grade nutrition company designed to help folks thrive in a rapidly changing world. With all that change has come a tremendous decline in our health from a combination of environmental, lifestyle, and psychological factors that are beyond our control. Thankfully, there's a powerful class of natural substances known as adaptogens that help us to quickly adapt to psychological, physiological, and emotional stresses in our environment. And those adaptogens are just one of the things that Surthrival specializes in. From our top-tier whole colostrum products, to our dual-extracted medicinal mushroom formulas, to our line of American-grown elk antler extracts and elk organ complex, and our androgenic pine pollen products, everything we carry is wild-sourced or grown to the highest standards, and formulated by me. We don't just use top-tier ingredients, we extract in organic alcohol, package in light-resistant Miron glass, and ship everything from our facility right here in Maine. Go to surthrival.com to see our entire lineup. There's a reason we've had an over 65% return customer rate for 18 years. These are powerful, natural formulas that deliver real results. Find it all at surthrival.com.
I just haven't seen the end of it, so I don't know whether it's a degenerate. I think we have lost contact. I want to be careful of judgment.
Yep.
I don't have judgment on the modern world.
Right.
It's not suited to the genes we were born with.
Right.
So the problem, as I stated, looking at urban person and what is the design capable of, what can we do in an urban environment to bring those closer together? They probably will not ever actually match.
Of course. But it would be great if our society was less of a factory farm and more of a zoo, right? Because like when you put an animal in the zoo, you try to at least recreate the conditions. You know, you create little habitats, little waterfalls, plants that they might have, diet that's like their diet. In the factory farm, it's like concrete floor, you don't care because you only want them for 2 years or whatever. You don't want, like the zoo, you want the animal to live as long as possible. The farm, you're like, just want to extract maximum product, right? So you try to cheapen everything as much as possible and make for efficiency. And when I look at what we're doing, it's like, hey, we're factory farming ourselves, not creating a zoo for ourselves.
Oh God, I was lamenting the zoo. You've just taken it one farther. I was going to say, we have to get ourselves out of the zoo and rewild ourselves.
Well, I think of a zoo as actually like a pretty friendly environment.
No, I take your point.
Biologically for the animal. It's not perfect, but at least there's an attempt to make it seem like the conditions so the animal can be healthy. And I do think some of us are lucky enough to live on more of a, like this is much more of a free range human farm out here.
Yes.
And if I lived in Manhattan, it'd be like, oh, that's like in high intensity factory farming of people. And you're like, what's the product? Well, it's like all kinds of things, but it's certainly taxation, it's labor, it's...
Well, that's AI
right?
now.
Yeah, it's exactly. How much cattle do we need now that we have AI? But anyway, to your point, I do agree with you. Like, I just wonder if it's degenerative because it's like you see these the neoteny that you have in animals that are domesticated, but also things like you're talking about, like with a pug. You're like, well, that doesn't seem like it's trending in a good direction.
No, hybridized animals, hybridized plants. We've seen a lot of that. Hybridization in plants works a lot better, but reducing the genome.
Correct. Till you get to really, and I think I guess one of the things that I think about sometimes is the city-state used to do this thing where it would go out and it would pillage the countryside. It would rape and pillage, which would infuse the city-state with genetics from
slaves.
And so you would get a reinfusion of strong genetics. It's like if you raise chickens long enough, sometimes you got to like go get some other varieties and bring them in to like infuse the genetics. We're kind of like running out of people to do that with, you know. So like, do we end up looking like gray aliens at the end of this? You know what I mean? Like, if we follow this trend line long enough and adapt, because the gray alien looks really adapted to the world we're building.
The gray alien looks really adapted to the world we're building. Okay, I'll take that.
Right, like no genitals, no like digestive tract, huge eyes, long touch screen fingers. Like everything looks like it's, you know, for the digital and built environment. You know, like,
and not an efforting environment.
Right, not an efforting environment. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. So training now is saying, well, you don't effort enough, so come into the gym and we'll effort you.
Correct. And I put out some videos recently saying, like, hey guys, we need to like read and do math and, you know, maintain some of these skills, because the Industrial Revolution replaced your labor with machine labor, and then, like you said, now we have to run on the hamster wheel. We all have experienced cognitive diminishment from technology tremendously, especially in memory is where I'm doing a lot of memory work now, because I'm realizing my memory is going away because
you don't have to.
And now Google's changed so much. It used to be, I search, it gives me web pages, it's like going to the library. Now I'm asking Google really specific questions and getting answers, and I'm noticing that because the answers are available, I don't really remember everything it's telling me anymore.
No.
And I saw that happen with phone numbers, and I saw that happen with all kinds of information. So yeah, in the gray alien, interestingly, you know, got this
very narrow jaw and a very wide head.
Yeah.
Very neoteny, as you say. It's we tend,
like a big fetus.
We tend to make our aliens like big babies.
Big baby. Wow, I hadn't thought about that. That is neoteny.
So there's the question of whether we should define this term neoteny for your listeners. Maybe they're familiar with it. I think it's good too, But neoteny is to hold on to young characteristics into the adult phase. So a chimp goes through a period where it looks like a human baby before it gets all the hair to make it look like a chimp.
Yeah.
So we're neotenized chimps. We get pulled out of the womb at 9 months when we really should be in the womb for 16 to 18 months for a full development. But we're born with our bones unfinished and our brain is going to double in size. Well, you ask any mother whether she wants to put that brain through the bottom of her body when the brain is double in size. This is one of the things where the mother won and the baby has to leave after 9 months, because that's as much head as is going to get through the bottom of that pelvis. Sort of between walking and birthing, we have this equation. And so we do a lot of our embryological development outside
the body. Wow.
And so one of the things that I'm going for now in my later career, since fascia, as you pointed out, has pretty well established itself, is how we treat our mothers and babies. As a very well-educated and body-working 35-year-old person, we are getting ready to have our baby, and after several miscarriages, etc. But finally she was coming, and so we were around babies a lot, and somebody would hand me a baby and I would go, oh, that's so cute, and look for a woman to give the baby to, because I don't know about this little thing, it's all squiggly. So I had the best education money could buy, Harvard, the rest of it. I didn't know how to hold a baby. How, you know, my education was really lacking.
Right.
When we took my baby to Bali, and she was by that time 29, I think 30 pounds or 28 pounds or something, of just pure fat. She was wonderful. She looked like the Michelin.
Yeah, right.
With all of this. I could hand her off to any 4-year-old in Bali.
Yep.
Secure that 4-year-old would know exactly how to hold a baby, would not drop it, would be very careful, and indeed was. We passed her off to all kinds of people in Bali, even little kids, because everybody can hold a baby there.
Man, that's a harsh indictment on humanity. Wow.
on my loving parents who did the very best for me, but I was isolated. I didn't have that thing. And so are there basic, you talked about math, and I think there are basic human skills that we haven't thought we had to put in, but we do. Have you seen a dead person? So many of the people who come to our dissections have never seen a dead person before.
Most people don't see anyone born or anyone die.
And those are two things that happen in a hospital that are not pathological.
Yeah.
There are two things that happen in a hospital that are not pathological: birth and death. They are both physiological processes. And birth has been medicalized. You have a condition called pregnancy.
Right.
Would you like an abdominal extraction or a vaginal extraction?
It could be an emergency.
Any minute now. Yeah. So that's a problem, that birth has been medicalized, and then death also. I had to go into the hospital locally where I was born to find out what time I was born for my astrologer, but I went and I was looking through the death records, and it's back then, 1949, natural causes, old age, pneumonia, just the things that take old people out. But go read the death certificates now. Cardiopulmonary failure, brain failure, renal failure, hepatic failure. It's always a failure.
Pathologized.
And it's always a failure when somebody dies.
And many of those causes of death were called natural death before, right? That's what you're saying?
Right.
So you're
but they're now pathologized.
But now they're pathologizing it all. Like, you're not supposed to die, but something happened.
Right, it's a failure when you die. So I'm not going to go to a hospital to die, because I have every intention that my death is going to be a complete success.
Man, I had a really unique experience a few years ago. My wife has a friend of the family, basically like a family member almost, very close. And he outlived everybody around him, and he was in his late 90s, and just he was starting to feel like he was a burden on his daughter, and he's in Canada, so he opted for medical suicide, I think they call it, that MAIDS program. I don't want to make any judgments on that program, but he invited us to his death, So I go to this thing, and I don't really know this, like, I'm new to this family, so everybody's very close, and I'm just the sort of like, this is just like observational for me in a weird way, And I had never really watched someone die. I've watched a lot of animals die, but I had never watched a human being die. And, they came in, it was a nurse and a doctor, and they had to like speak to him real quick, make sure he's under his own, this is a decision he's making. And it was a series of crazy injections with all kinds of different sized needles, and one by one, they just deactivated him, and I watched him die. And it occurred to me, like, I don't know where we come from and where we go, but I think people would wonder about that a lot more if they watched it, and we would talk about it a lot more if we watched it. And there's something about taking that away from human view that helps to reduce the world to cogs and wheels and belts and pulleys, or a completely materialistic worldview, because we're not exposed to the fact that people are coming in here from somewhere and people are going back out somewhere. Does that make sense? Like
Somebody stop that.
Well, it's just like, is there a portal? Like, how do we, you know what I mean? There's something really interesting about if you sequester away birth and death. It just takes, it's like, this is the big important stuff.
Yes, and people have, I think in the materialist society and in the internet thing, there is this sense of living forever. I have a lot of people out on the West Coast who think if they have the right diet and they do the right exercises, they're going to cheat death. Well, good luck, brother.
I always go like, hey, you ever think about native people who lived here like 400 years ago? No glyphosate. No heavy metals, no perfect diet, perfect exercise, all the sunlight. They're doing all the things. They still just died at the end. Like, you think you're in this toxic soup you're living in with all this dysfunction, you're gonna eat your way to immortality? Like, I used to think it too, but it seems really silly now.
It does. I see these people trying to balance themselves out with doing everything on the right side that they do on the left side, and your organs your liver's over here, it's heavier. Your stomach's over here, it's heavier or lighter, depending on whether you ate recently or not.
Yeah, right.
It's the whole thing of you are never going to be in balance. This was my youthful stupidities. You thought you were going to live forever if you ate the right things. I thought I was going to achieve postural enlightenment, and then nothing would bother me anymore because I would be in a state of satori and everything would... that isn't the thing. Yeah. The thing is to be able to be resilient when life hits you upside the head, because life is going to hit you upside the head, and if it doesn't, I'm kind of sorry for you, because those are the things that build your character and build your kids' character and let you know about your relationship in a much deeper way and things like that. So I don't want to not... I thought I was going to achieve this place where I wouldn't be buffeted. And then I realized, no, I just want to be strong and resilient when I'm buffeted, so that these models are kind of a good thing. You get the twist that happens in life, and then, the strain comes off and you come back. And that's what you're talking about the 50-year-old. You got a strain and then it didn't come back.
Yeah, I'm stuck in the strain.
Yeah, so then the question is, what happened to the joints? What happened to the muscles? And that's where I find it hard to give one nice piece of advice to everybody with these things. And finding somebody good in your town. I don't care who they are. Psychologist, acupuncturist, osteopath, body worker. Find the person who's really busy in your town and go see them. And it doesn't matter what they do. And listen to them. And then if they can't sort your problems out, say, well, who would you see? Because people who are busy refer. And people who are busy usually have a good referral network. So I go to this acupuncture. The problem is your lower back is probably not going to yield to acupuncture. Might, but might not. But she knows a really good osteopath. Yes, he's 40 miles away. You wouldn't have heard about him, but she knows him. Yeah. So getting a referral network, we are not in a place now where there is a place that you can go and get this sorted out for yourself and send a picture of yourself in, and maybe there will be, you get a 3D scan and it'll go into some AI and it'll come back with a program for you. We're not there yet. And so for those of us with deep things in our bodies that we say, okay, I don't want to go into old age with this. I want to see if I can get this out. There are some things we can't unbreak your tibia and fibula. Something happened there. However, we can go in there with a fine-tooth comb and comb out the tissue. And in my own case, because I broke my leg in a similar way, and when 5 years later I showed up at my first Rolfing, he said, when did you break your leg? And I went, how did you see that? And of course, I can see that all the time now. But it's, you have to go at scar tissue, the same thing. It's like your kid got gum in their hair. You're not going to take their hair and a brush. You're going to take a little bit of hair and a little brush, and you're going to take it out a little bit at a time. And when you talk about the fascial gunk that has gunked up around an injury, we're in the same kind of thing. We're going in there with a short bristle brush, and we're getting the gum out of the hair, and hopefully it will be flowy and easily letting fluids through it, and yet still resilient enough to handle the forces.
I want to ask another fascia question, but I just want to leave a pin, and we got talking about birth and death there, and I want to make sure we come back there.
Okay.
I'm wondering where the current science is in fascia stuff. I saw an article sitting over there. I believe the title is "Fascia is able to actively contract and may thereby influence musculoskeletal dynamics." I hear things about fascia as a communication network.
Yes.
What do we know now? Like you said, initially it was thought of as like packing peanuts. I know as a butcher, you're mostly cutting it away. Unless you're gonna, braise a cut, right? Where I can turn that stuff into like soft gelatin, and then it's like supremely lovely to eat. But otherwise, you're always trimming it away. It goes in the dog food pile, And there is a tendency that, they often call it in butchery silver skin.
Silver skin.
And you think of it, you think of it as sort of like not really useful material. I definitely don't look at it and think of it as, I guess when I don't know what it does outside of its holding the body together. I'm curious if we're now learning.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah, I'm curious though.
It holds the body together.
You're right, of course. But is there more? Because I keep hearing things. I keep hearing rumblings that it does more.
Yes.
But yeah, that's pretty good. Honestly.
That's pretty good. So I would say a couple of things. The silver skin that you see under the skin of an animal is also a muscle attachment for every surface muscle that you've never seen in an anatomy book. All your latissimus, your trapezius, your obliques, your abdominals are all tied into that silver skin. We take the silver skin off, and that's where we start the anatomy book.
Yeah, so when people see that chart of the red guy standing there, all that's
gone.
been removed.
Silver skin's gone.
Except they'll leave it in the lumbars. You'll see a little white.
That's underneath. That's still not.
Oh,
the
okay.
silver skin.
Not the silver skin, which is the exterior.
Silver skin is
okay.
It's called the fascia profundus because it's the first
Okay, so it's a
deep layer.
specific type. Okay,
It's
understood.
a specific layer, and it's a unitar. It goes all over your body.
Okay.
And sometimes it kind of melts into the other layers where you can't find it, but it's all over the body. It's a developmental layer, and the skin goes on top of that. So you have the silver skin, then this is 100. Then you have the fat layer, which is actually 2 layers, one that's more lymphatic and one that's more neurological. And then you have the skin layers, which is a very thin panicular fascia to which the skin cells are attached. And I believe, don't quote me, I think you have about 600 layers of skin cells, and 200 of them are dead. So the only part of you and I that are looking at each other that's living is the part that we keep wet.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The rest of it has about 200 layers of skin, and if you hit the road and your skin weeps but doesn't bleed, you went down past the dead skin level
Into living skin.
Yeah. So when you say you're exfoliating, you're maybe taking 75 of those 200 layers off. You've still got a whole layer of dead cells on there, and if you did what they did in Clockwork Orange and hold your eyes open, you wouldn't see for very long, because all the cells on the surface of your eye would
Start dying. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. We were going on.
But I was wondering, is there communication? Is there hormonal? Is there anything going on in the fascia that is beyond its structural component?
Okay, hormones and fascia are just now being studied because most of the studies are done on men whose hormone picture is so much more constant than women. So now, fortunately, the research is beginning to work on it, and we're looking at people who have very soft fascia, like ligamentous laxity or Ehlers-Danlos. That's a condition. That seems to be a genetic condition of the fascia, but there are all kinds of things that lead to that, and we're just getting into that. So hormones and fascia, chemistry in general, your chemistry, blood type, and things like that, how it affects the fascia, that's an area of research we're just going into now.
Wow.
We know hormones affect fascia. Now, in spite of the title of the article that you just read, fascia doesn't actively contract very much. The active contraction in fascia, and I kind of hesitate to say this because then people go out and say, fascia contract. If you cut a wound, because the fascia is tensile, the 2 sides of the wound will spread apart. And then they get proud on either side, and then it covers over, and then over the days you see it being pulled back together.
Right.
That's fascial cells reaching out and grabbing onto the fascia, reaching out and grabbing onto the fascia, and within the limits of what cells can do, pulling that fascia back together. So wound healing is one of the few places that we know that there's active contraction of the fascia.
Okay.
Dupuytren's contracture, where you sometimes see in older women, you see nodules and their fingers are like this, I can't open the hand. That is maybe some of these cells that do this active contraction going crazy in the hand for reasons we don't know. Happens on the foot too. But fascia is really responding to your muscles. But your muscles in gravity, your muscles in physics, but mostly gravity, right? So to hold myself up here, if you said, Tom, relax, and I really did relax, I couldn't sit in the chair, right? I need some tonus in my muscles to stay there. Yeah. Except that our brains put out a lot of extra tension. So that extra tension, we talked about it earlier, if I have an arching thing because I'm eager to get in the world, or I'm a little worried about my place in the world, or I'm a man's man. Yeah. And you do that with your muscles, your fascia just essentially says, I'm anthropomorphizing the fascia, but the fascia essentially says, okay, if you're going to do that with your muscles, then you need straps here, 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 and here. And then even if you change your muscle patterning, the straps are still there.
Yeah.
They will disappear, but they disappear a lot slower than muscles.
Yeah, and that assumes you don't fall back into your pattern
Yes.
all the time, which is
Yes.
very hard to
It's
stay
very hard
out
to get
of.
out of the pattern. But if you do stay out of the pattern, you undertake a new training program, you're doing things that you didn't do, your fascia will remodel according to that training program. Or a couch potato, you know, it'll remodel to be a couch potato. It remodels as a couch potato towards the thing which is generally responsive to whatever threat might come or whatever change might come. And that's a cotton ball impregnated with jelly. In other words, the fibers are going everywhere. They're like felt. They're just going in every direction. So no matter what force comes on it, it will adapt to that force. Now imagine that I took that cotton ball and I did this with it.
Yeah.
The fibers would all
Start
line
to
up,
align.
and I would get to a place where it stops.
Yeah.
So try that on your arm right now. If you put your hand on your arm, you can move a quarter of an inch, half an inch in any direction. You can even move a half an inch away or a half an inch in, right? Any direction. And it's really easy, right? There's very little resistance. Okay, do it again. Now move your hand towards your elbows 5 or 6 centimeters and feel what's happening to the braid on your wrist.
Yeah.
You're moving it.
Yeah.
So the cotton is omnidirectional, looking out for everything, but then you put a tension on it and it says, oh, that's where the force is coming. I'm going to resist that force to save these tissues because I don't want my skin to tear, right? So it's weak, 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 strong.
Yeah.
Unlocked, 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 locked. So fascia has that ability to be really soft and easy for the movement that I want to do. And then solidified by muscles, it becomes a strap that can, you know, bench press whatever you can bench press.
Right.
That we have thought a lot about muscles and joints and nerves. And it's not that the fascia is more important than these other ones or less important. It's just part of the equation that we haven't really put in. So tendons are made out of fascia, ligaments are made out of fascia, all that white stuff that you see in the anatomical books is made out of fascia. And once you do that, you realize, oh my God, all of our cells are living in a sea of fascia.
Yeah.
And so now we get to your
Literally
question.
every cell is.
Literally every cell, except maybe you could say the red blood cells. There's a debate, I want to get back to this, but there's a debate in the thing of how much of the water in your body is free and how much of it is tied up in the fascial system.
Wow.
Because most of our listeners will be thinking of the fascial system as what we've been talking about, the fibers of collagen, sinewy and white. You can see it in hunting, the silver skin and all of that. There's another element of it, which is gel. You've also probably seen that gel. It's slippery, it's synovial fluid in the joints. That's the primary thing of that gel. That gel is a lubricant in the body, and it allows for movement and allows for these kinds of changes in the length of the fascia, which happens in yoga, happens when I put my elbow in there. Now, you want it to grow back into the proper shape. I dropped on my elbow. I don't know if the camera can see this, but I dropped on my elbow. I was carrying a cup of coffee and just went and cracked it, but didn't know I'd cracked it because there's a bursa right here. It was a mess. It was bloody and all full of fluid. So by the time I had gotten around, this extra bit, this heterotropic bone growth had happened. So now I have a new tool.
I was gonna say that looks like feel great going up your spine.
Yeah, I know. It looks unsightly for my girlfriend, but that's how it goes. You know, you can't get through this life without a few dings, and I just, it was a very interesting ding to watch it go. And you know, here's another thing. Can I make that go away? Is there somebody who knows how to make that go away? I don't know how to make that go away. Can I find somebody? And at 77, I don't know. I'll tell you a story. I broke the lateral meniscus on my left knee. I was chasing my favorite 16-year-old down the dock here in Maine, and she did a face plant. And in order to avoid putting my foot in the middle of her back, I did a big leap and landed wrong. And your meniscus in here is shaped like a crescent moon, and I split it in half.
Man.
And I was shortly after that, I was clearly painful and clearly not. So I was giving a class in Norway, and a physio said, "Oh, I've got an ultrasound machine. We'll go look at it," and we could see it split. So I have the picture, the proof that it was split, and I did all the things that I know as a therapist to heal cartilage. But I was 69 at the time. I didn't think that was ever going to heal. At 72, 3 years later, I went through Norway again, and the same physiotherapist was there. I said, can we have a look at it again? And the thing had healed.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying this because I eat the right food. I eat terrible food. I'm on the road all the time. I survive on Starbucks and the rest of the terrible things that are in the airports that I have to go through.
But at least they're cheap.
At least they're cheap. Yes. A piece of chicken, a sprig of broccoli.
Yeah, $75.
Yeah, but the so it's not because of that, but I think the healing powers that would still be in your discs, that would still be in some of the things that you might think, that's really gone beyond the pale. I think that we have not tested the healing powers of these things. Maybe it is neoteny. Maybe we are retaining those youthful characteristics farther and farther. I don't know, but I also, one measure of this would be how long can you have braces on? They're doing some adult work with braces now and expanders and things like that because of this narrow jaw thing that we were talking about a while ago. But
I'm watching a kid right now. She's 2 cranks a night. It looks so painful to me.
Yes.
But she needs that space.
She needs the space. Yep. I feel like my jaw is wide enough, but I didn't have room for my wisdom teeth. Why would God give you wisdom teeth and then not enough room to put them in? It's us. It's our diet. It's something that we're doing to the piece. And I have no idea. I'm sure genetics will be part of the answer to that, but I think the environment of the zoo or the jungle or what was your third one?
The digital.
Yeah, no.
The factory farm?
A factory farm.
Yeah.
I had not gone as dismal as putting us in a factory farm. That's really where we are. That's really where we are. I thought about it as the human zoo, that we built a zoo and we live in it. And I think that might be true out here in Maine, where we actually can have a nice zoo with
I think it's, I mean, if you live high enough too, up the pyramid, you can definitely live in a zoo, right? There's lots of zoo out there. It's a whole different world.
But it's hard to live in the wild anymore.
Yeah. Well, and there's like as a hunter, it's so different than it would have been ancestrally because 1, there's way less animals. 2, they're way more hip to what people are. 3, every, quarter mile, you're hitting another property boundary. It's not like you can just range over huge areas and follow herds of animals anymore. Like, you can't. You're just like private property, private property, private property. So it's like, that's not even there to live in anymore. I mean, it takes a lot of space for a person to live as a true hunter-gatherer. You need to quite a big piece of land.
That's why we can't go back to that. We can't even go back to everybody having their little agricultural plot.
Right.
William Penn set up Philadelphia with a long lot so that you could have a house in the front and a full garden in the back.
Right.
You still see that now, but the houses have been built all the way down the lot. So you have all these houses in Philadelphia that are not very wide, but very, very deep.
Yeah.
Because of the way he set it up for gardening, for each person to have their individual garden. But maybe you can do a windowsill garden if you're my daughter living in Brooklyn. You could do a windowsill garden, or maybe there's an allotment thing that you can get a piece of in your neighborhood. Yeah, you're kind of reaching, grasping to get a little bit of.
Yeah, I think it's headed towards obviously smaller space. Question for you: do you think that everything we've been talking about, these changes, and then what we see on the horizon, because it's like, we're seeing the rollout now, finally after quite a long time, but we're seeing the rollout of robotics at a level that's pretty astonishing when you see these robots doing backflips. Yep. And I remember when you were seeing Boston Dynamics or General Dynamics showing them when they were still wired, but now they're carrying their own power. So wow, that's a whole new thing. AI obviously has rolled out in just a couple of years, and I love when people go, yeah, but you can tell it's AI. I'm like, dude, it's the second year you've had it. Like, give it a second. It's going to be indistinguishable from reality pretty soon, I think. We have nanotechnology. It's like you can have self-assembling machines in your body now. We have genetic alteration, I guess, or engineering available to us. CRISPR. So these technologies, combined with that shrinking space, that neoteny, that factory farm, I'm wondering if you personally chalk this up to organically unfolding because of like a collective movement towards this, or do you perceive it as a nefarious? In other words, do you see that the world is being steered by benevolent and malevolent forces, or do you think that these are forces that emerge from within us? In other words, is it an emergent property? Because it's real easy to look at the world right now and be like, who's in charge of this? Darth Vader? Like, what is this? Like, where are we? Why does it look like it's constantly imprisoning human beings and degrading us? Is that an emergent property of people, or are there forces at play that are against humanity?
You're asking me a philosophical question that I feel unqualified to answer, but
everybody's unqualified for it.
Let me have a stab at it anyway, because it's fun. In the old tribal world, you get to these numbers, what are they? Moore's numbers or something like that. How many people could live?
Oh yeah, Dunbar's number.
Dunbar number. How many people could live on a given thing of land? As you say, if you're a nomad, or if you're a hunter-gatherer, you need a lot of land to support a small group of people. So they say groups of 30 or maybe up to 150, but then they'd have to split because you couldn't do more than 150 people. You can't do Rome without agriculture.
Yeah.
And so the people who were looking over the village, the people charged with keeping that, the shaman, the village wise woman, the chief, were very much doing what everybody else was doing on a daily basis, right? Going hunting and gathering. It was just you put a special hat on him, and when the council was in, then he was the chief, and then he had a stick. And the talking stick got passed around. Well, by the time you get to a king, that crown can kill you, and so can the other hand. But it was much more even, and they would look out for the kids in the village. You couldn't be a psychopath without being caught by your tribe in the process of growing up.
Wow. Yeah.
Luigi Mangione, or whatever his name is, can get through school and nobody picks him up. Or choose the murderer that you want. But somehow these folks are getting through our society, which is so industrial now, people can come up without that mentor that the village would always have. But we invented another type of person called a corporation, and a psychopath is ideally suited to run this thing called a corporation. And so we have, instead of selecting psychopaths out of the village society, which would have happened in a tribe or in a small village. Take those small villages in England. You can be batty, but you couldn't be murderous. Agatha Christie would come and get you.
Yeah.
You couldn't be murderous.
Yeah.
But now we license those people. We give them big salaries and say maximize our profits. And that is not maximizing the well-being of all the people under the care of that corporation, whether you think of that corporation as caring for anything, or the government that's supposed to be. It's all so large now, there is no village. I just was part of, I want to get back to the birth thing before we finish, because I was just in an event about rebirthing the village, getting birth back into a village context. Because, as we said earlier, if you have birth and you go to a hospital, it's considered a disease, of which there are several ways to get out of that disease. By a knife, or by the vagina with a lot of drugs. But having a natural childbirth, you have to fight for.
Yeah.
We were talking about how you have to advocate.
A lot of doctors, my impression is, are uncomfortable with it because they don't do it that often, and because they're afraid of how many complications could come up. And they've got a golf game scheduled for 3 hours from now. And
I don't get the third one.
Okay.
The golf game, that's a trope.
Okay.
But I don't.
All right. We'll remove that one.
Yeah, we'll remove this one.
But you feel the first two.
Yeah, but what these are driven by is the insurance companies.
Yes, agreed.
The outcome of a C-section is better now than the outcome of a natural birth.
Yeah, wow.
Because we've upped the skills in doing C-sections, and we've diminished the skills of doing natural childbirth.
Yeah.
Forceps aren't bad if you have the skill to use them. 2 French physicians made up forceps. They gave courses in how you use them.
This is when you grab the head with the forceps.
Yeah. You can reach up inside a horse and pull the foal out. You can reach up inside a cow and pull the calf out. Why? Because what we are pleased to call the pelvic floor is for them a pelvic sidewall. So they don't need a whole bunch of muscle.
Right.
We're sitting on it all.
So that pelvic floor has to be strong.
Our pelvis had to do this for us to walk.
Yeah.
The pelvic floor had to get really taut, and then you're going to put a baby through that. We talked about that. The baby has to get out after 9 months instead of out of 16 or 18 months, just because of the size of that. And all power to it. I want healthy babies and healthy mothers, and if the baby was going to die or the mother was going to die, and you need to get in there and do a C-section, okay. But Michel Audin, a very prominent obstetrician, he was a surgeon, and he went into obstetrics because he heard all the screaming down in the obstetrics ward, and he went, what is going on here? And he went over there. And then, without telling his whole story, he ended up running a clinic in which you could have a natural childbirth or a cesarean section. None of the intervening epidural, Pitocin, none of that stuff in the beginning. You just had a natural childbirth. Thing we can talk about another time of how to set that up. But he had a cesarean rate in his clinic of 4 to 6% a year on year. Meaning,
when is this?
Meaning that 1 in 25 women need a C-section. But now 50% of the babies that are being born on this planet are being born C-section.
Do you think that the amount that is needed has increased due to pelvic change, like structural changes, or do you think it's all driven by what we were talking about before, which is just changes in the medical system?
I think it's mostly driven by what we were talking about before, which is the need for the medical system, the patriarchy, if you will, to control feminine creativity. That's a big thing.
And get those midwives out of there. That's arcane science. That's arcane witchcraft.
But in the 1850s, it wasn't great medical care, but most medical care that was given to women was given by women.
Yeah.
It's more recently that we've put men doctors in charge of women's health care, which is
pretty crazy.
A dubious thing.
Pretty hard for men to understand women at even a basic level. So, I mean,
Spend a lifetime with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, to get back to this subject, I think that birth is the place where the fewest dollars and the fewest amount of, because we don't have much time, right? That the most immediate change could be made in parental relations and then the child growing up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot one thing on the cesarean sections. The research has come through now, I just read this recently, that because we're doing so many cesarean sections, some of those cesarean sections are being done on women whose pelvis is just too naturally narrow to have a baby. Guess what? Their children are too narrow to ever have a baby. And their children will be too narrow to ever have a baby. So yes, we are, by our ubiquitous cesarean sections, preserving genes for narrow pelvis for women, which would not have been preserved without C-sections.
That's a hard teaching, but it makes sense, yeah.
But it's already showing up in research.
Let me make sure I understand that. Are you saying that these genes would essentially, the natural, my understanding is the natural mortality rate for infants is about 50%. Historically.
That would be argued, I don't know.
Or maybe I should say only about 50% of children would make it to adulthood in the past.
Oh, okay, that's better.
So you'd have a lot of child mortality early in, and then of course to get a child just up to where they're like self-sustaining, it was hard to do.
Sure, but think of the pioneers. They had 7 children in hopes that 4 of them would make it to adulthood.
Or they had 24 of them, and they had,
Right, and the hopes that 1 would stay behind to take care of them.
Yeah.
So,
but are you saying that many of these children might not have made it through childbirth, and so those genes wouldn't be carried forward, and now they are? So that's a hard thing to talk about.
It's a hard thing to talk about.
But
those women would have died in childbirth, and who wants those women to die in childbirth? So they get a cesarean section. But just understand, that's meaning that
that creates a downstream effect.
We'll need the cesarean section as well.
Are there, from a myofascial perspective, a structural perspective, is there any important value for that squeeze of a natural childbirth as the body's deformed its way and spiraled through the vagina versus pulled out into the open air like that?
Yes, and there are benefits that we don't know about yet. What happens when you squeeze the brain like that? I don't know about you. My baby was born as a cone head.
Yeah, it's pretty common, right?
And because it went down through the birth canal,
Sure.
and the bones are not ossified, sutures aren't ossified, and it's fortunate for the mother that the head can do that. And within an hour, it'll look like a grapefruit, and you're wondering how the hell did that get through there? Because the head really expands in that first hour or two. And my youngest client was an hour old. His cone head was not resolving after an hour. And I took that. Oh, God, this was such a privilege.
The gentlest little
cry just thinking about it. But
man.
I just had this. She was on her mother, of course, but I just had this tiny little head in my hand, and it was like suggesting through my hand.
Yes,
and then
right.
Change it. I didn't have to do anything.
Like to smell those little heads.
I love it. So, as a very well-educated man who, when he was faced with having a baby, had no idea how to handle them, I think that even mothers now are, that's me as a dad, and lots of dads have lost contact with that infant thing, and we could bring that back, because it's a joy to interact with your, and once you know what they're doing, it only takes a few hours. If I have a few hours...
What they're doing, what do you mean? If you know what?
If you know what the baby is doing, then you can move with them. Or they can move with you if you're alert to the signs. So my baby is now almost 40, and we were back with the pins on the diapers. And so I would put my hand on her hip, and I would turn her over onto one side, take one pin off, and then I would turn her over on the other side and take the other pin off, and then do something to clean up the area that needs cleaning up. And by doing that, very gently and rolling her pelvis, within a week, I would put my hand on her hip, and her eyes would, and her head would start to turn the other way. This is going to make me cry too, because we were doing it together. Now, what could her contribution be at 4 weeks, 4 months? Not much. But we were doing it together. And that made the communication between us so much more rich. And I'm not doing it to her. I know sometimes you got to put the groceries away and you just have to sit in that chair. I get it. But not all the time. Sometimes you can be down there and you watch the baby reach out with one arm and turn this way. You just put a hand under that foot, and all of a sudden they organize themselves to turn over and see the cat, or see mom, or see whatever they're going to see. So if you understand how, nobody ever taught me how small bodies move. Even after I knew how large bodies move, even after I was a body worker, I still didn't understand small bodies. And now I understand small bodies, and I can really help fathers a lot, and mothers come by it more naturally, for sure. But even now, we're so isolated. We're in such nuclear families. We don't grow up with children all about us. And so that's...
I've got a couple friends around me who have big families, religious folks mostly, 5 kids, 6 kids. It's so unusual today to see this like troop of people, and the size of vehicle they need to go anywhere. But it's
people
such
in their judgment. And
one family was telling me they were at like a Renaissance fair last summer, and they brought their kids to the childcare area, and they were being made fun of by the childcare workers, and they could hear them, talking about how unethical it was for them to have these kids and stuff. I mean, just the anti-humanness sometimes, the misanthropy. I was a real victim of that kind of thinking for a long time, but anyway, side note. I've got some friends right now, they've got 5. She's pregnant with the 6th. They don't have a midwife, a doula, or they're just doing it at home at this point. She's just gonna call him. And you know what? She just won a deadlifting contest the other day. She's not sure what her due date is, but it's this month. She won a deadlifting competition, pulling, I think she did 100 reps of 225 with like the torpedo belly,
Yes, I know.
And so you see,
I'm just thinking about that poor kid trying to get through that.
It's astonishing what we're capable of and what we're really like, and then what we've been kind of convinced that we are. They just, not only do they not see it as an emergency, but they don't even see it as like we need anybody involved. We've done this so many times, we just are going to integrate it into our life. And watching how all the kids take care of each other, and they all know, like you said, how to handle babies. it's reframing, being around people like that, so reframing how I think about it, you know, because I feel like we really have turned it into something.
Well, the people who are shaming them are out of date, because we're having so many fewer babies.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that is that each baby is going to be precious. I used to say a thing, and I was jesting. We'll know our society is getting its bearings back when midwives are paid more than bank presidents.
Yeah.
Because the midwives are guarding a treasure that's more valuable than what the bank president is.
Right.
But we don't
Federal
realize
Reserve
that.
debt notes.
Right. We don't recognize that in our. But we are now going to, because fertility rates are going down, hormones are going down all over the world. All over the world. It's not just us. And then in educated societies, industrial societies as we have now, having a child is an incredible luxury.
Yeah.
Child, a very expensive thing to have.
Yeah.
And they keep getting more expensive the older they get.
You ever seen the film Idiocracy? You know, and that theme that like the educated people are not having kids, and then the uneducated people are having lots of kids, and the story being the dumbing down that happens as a result of that. But it is interesting to watch, and also, as you no doubt know, it's like I would have to have, with my wife, 3 kids in order to add to the population.
Yes.
Right? And I think people don't realize that. It's like, hey, if you only have 1 kid, you're in the removal of, so you're reducing.
We're in a big removal thing now,
Yeah.
and we had to be, because we were overpopulating like crazy. We thought it would be maybe education, but it's really education of women and making women more equal in the workplace. And then children, as I said 100 years ago, were the necessary resource to have you taken care of. Now that's not the thing. A child is just an expensive luxury.
Right.
And we have to make that change. Now, while we have the time when only a few children are being born, we are also being born into an age where they can have Aristotle as a tutor and Louis Pasteur as a chemistry professor, right? You know, the benefits of education coming down the internet are amazing, and we will focus a whole lot on the children that are left.
If they're doing that kind of education and not just watching videos all day, though, you know, it's like the internet is the greatest tool ever existed, and we're using it to like masturbate. I mean, it's kind of like, I wish that it was like we were using it well. I don't feel like we even know what to do with it right now.
But I think we will be better
out.
with that, with kids and education and things like that in future generations. And I find this now in America, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this about America and not about Europe, Australia, Japan, China, is that Americans are no longer taught to use their brains to find something out. So I've got a bunch of students in my classroom up there, and we have winnowed them out, because these are the final things after a year's thing. The ones who want to know the answer, here's my book. The answers are all in here.
Yeah.
The people who want to be engaged in the question are the people we want in the training.
Yeah.
Not the people who want the answers.
The word question has the word quest right in it.
Yeah.
And many people are not interested in the quest.
No,
right?
they just want the answer.
Stay in the Shire. Yeah, well, and I just
Stay in the Shire.
I just have this like memory of, I would have an interest, I would go to the library, I would go to the card catalog, I would pull 20 books out, they'd be all stacked there on the table with a big dictionary, and I would have to piece together that answer. And just like it was a lot harder to get from point A to point B in the past, and now it's very easy, it's like it's gotten so easy to get information that it's sort of like how hard it is for people to start exercising when they don't exercise. It's like, oh, but it hurts. And watching people have to think sometimes, you're like, oh, does it hurt? Like, I worry that that's why I've been encouraging people to have resources, like hard resources. Maybe you don't need them, but it sure is good for your brain to need to solve problems. Or I was saying recently, play chess, like something, but find some kind of problem-solving
these habits of mind. We're talking about habits of body, and habits of body are very important. We're talking about birth, and you get so many hormonal and ecological things set in your body at birth, that seems to me to be a very fruitful place to put our efforts. But the habits of mind of being able to deal with a world that's unpredictable has not been a big value, because the world's been pretty predictable for those of us living in the Western world.
Yeah, those 80s and 90s were pretty nice.
Well, I think my mother had the right idea. She died in September of 16, about 3 months before Trump was elected. I think that was about the time to leave.
16 is when I remember things really changed around 12, but slow. Yeah. But by 16, it went crazy, and now I can't believe where we are in 26. It's remarkable.
Very rapid. Very rapid change, and I don't want to sit around like an old man saying, "Oh, it's so much better when you're young." In some ways, it was better when we were young.
In some ways,
and in some ways, my younger friends said to me, "Oh, well, you grew up in the 50s when it was pure water." Oh, we grew up in the 50s when the engines were so poor we were breathing hydrocarbons.
Rivers were polluted. There was no organic food.
Yes, exactly. You couldn't get Walnut Acres peanut butter, and Amazon was certainly not available to deliver it to your house in 2 or 3 days. So they were good times in many ways, but we have to redo this thing. We have to redo this thing, not in terms of trying to get back to the 50s or the 60s or the 80s or the 1800s. We're facing a new situation. And then I get these people, I'm doing yoga. It was passed down from Patanjali in the 3rd century AD. I am doing a martial art. It was passed down from father to son for 565 years. Thank you for telling me how irrelevant your practice is.
Yeah.
Because we're facing a situation nobody's ever faced before.
Right.
I love yoga, I love Tai Chi and all the martial arts. They're all very important.
But those aren't going to solve the new problems.
They're agricultural answers to an agricultural problem.
Yeah.
Agriculturally based answers to the problem. So I want all the wisdom that I can get to here, because some of it will apply to the electronic era. But all our exercise went mechanical when we went into the mechanistic era. And so now we do a lot of things that are doing your muscles and all that kind of thing. But as we go into the electronic era, we're going to get electronic exercise. I think it's going to look really different.
Yeah.
I don't mean electronically enhanced exercise. That's something different. We can all get our download our classes from the internet. We can put a ring on that tells us what's going on when we sleep and all of that kind of thing. But to sense yourself inside and to know when things are off. You asked me a question a long time ago, which is, what do I think the power of the fascial system is? Does it have a communications aspect? And yes, it does. It clearly communicates tension and pressure. That's its main job, is to transfer force. When the ferns, by which I mean the things that the parts of the glue, the gooey stuff, which looks like a fern if you look at it under a microscope, and they line up water molecules in rows like soldiers, for thousands of rows of water molecules out. So they organize the water in your body into what Gerald Pollack calls the 4th phase of water.
Easy water.
Easy water.
Yeah, structured water.
And so your body is structuring the water. If your fascia is in a bad state, the ferns curl up, they get sticky, and they're obviously not organizing the water molecules. The water molecules are just freely going out there. So you want this stuff to actually be engaged with the water molecules of your body. Now, it looks, for all the world, like an antenna. What is it an antenna for? With 50 years of dealing with this thing, my answer is hunches. That it's your intuitive system. We think of, oh, I'm having an intuition in my nervous system. I don't think so. You might realize it in your nervous system. You might give voice to it in your nervous system, but it was actually coming from your antenna that's tuned to where are the threats in the outside world. One of the things in anatomy where this goes is your nervous system is newer than your fascial system. Your nervous system is really good at carrying coded signals across your body. Signal from here to there, signal from your gut to your head on the vagus nerve. But before that, before there was a central nervous system and an organized nervous system all over your body, it was your fascia that had channels all over your body. The sinew channels that they talk about in acupuncture. And I think that system was capable of reacting faster than the nervous system.
Wow.
The evidence I'm going to present to this was I was going to show my girlfriend of the time the petroglyphs in Santa Fe, and you have to walk through fields and desert to get to this petroglyph. And she was walking in front and she said, "Are there snakes out here?" I went, "No, there are cows out here. The snakes don't like the cows. You won't see any snakes, don't worry." And she said, "Well, you walk in front anyway." So I started walking. It was not like 100 feet later, I almost stepped on 2 mating rattlesnakes.
Wow.
They were mating. The guy was not amused at my presence.
Yeah, I bet.
And came up, and my partner said, "You went straight up in the air, and then you went backwards, and then you came down." And it happened all very fast. Too fast for an image of an unfamiliar terrain with an unfamiliar animal in it to register on my retina, go to the occipital lobe, come back to some basal ganglia or hypothalamus for recognition, out through the limbic system, and I end up jumping. I think that went on my fascial system. Wow. I think there's an ancient thing, but it only does messages like help or danger, fire. It doesn't do things like, oh, can you just move your toes like this for the arpeggio of the Chopin? No, that has to happen from your nervous system. But the things of withdrawal or total organism threat was carried original by the fascial system, and is now being carried with much more nuance by the fascial system.
I've had that. I almost stepped on a rattlesnake. I felt the wind of the strike on the hairs of my leg, and I remember so distinctly what you're describing. I stumbled back way before I was stumbling before I even understood what was happening. Like it definitely was a primitive response.
The fascial system travels at 720 miles an hour. Wow. I'm sorry, 520 miles an hour.
We're talking speed of sound.
No, this is the speed of sound in water. Because it's an aqueous medium.
Oh, yeah.
It is a sound wave. That went through my body at the speed of sound.
Okay.
That's 3 times faster than your fastest nerves.
Really?
So your fascial system communicates about 3 times faster than your nervous system. But it's not capable of all the nuance that your nervous system. I'm not trying to say, the fascial system could take over from the nervous system.
Right.
Nothing like that. I'm just saying, it was the tunic that held you in, and therefore it got sensors in it to what's going on outside. Now that tunic is covered by skin. The silver skin is that tunic. It's covered by skin. It goes all through you too, so it's in with the organs. But I believe we just let that whole system get so untuned in this generational slide that we're doing, that system got so untuned. Our nervous system is tuned, but it's tuned to very particular things now, as you say, on the internet. And our chemistry system is now tuned to glyphosate, to PFAS, to all the things that are coming in from the environment. There's simply no question that cancers, I believe, been proven beyond any doubt that some cancers are environmental, that they have nothing to do with your genes going wrong. They are just, or the genes go wrong because of the stimulation from the outside. When
you add 70,000 new chemicals into the environment every year, it's probably some of them are going to not be good. Yeah. Wow.
So I do believe that there is a really wonderful human potential. I see wonderful things happening with the young people that I know in the world, and their desire to change it. It often feels to me as if this stone is rolling down the hill, and that even if we get really stroppy about it, we're going to have a hard time stopping that rock.
I was going to ask you, do you see us over these next decades? It seems like there's a really, like you could almost just thread the needle and not have catastrophe? Or do you think that because there's a way of looking at the young people right now and be like, man, these kids are a mess. But I feel like it's because life is so easy. Like add some crisis, and I think they pull together pretty well. I've read that the greatest generation, right, that World War II generation, that there was a lot of talk when they were young about how dumb these kids were. They couldn't understand anything, blah, blah, blah. And then the crisis of the war led them to be the greatest generation. And I wonder if this generation is going to inherit the crisis and hardship will generate strong people again, or do you think that maybe we thread the needle and somehow we can get through these next years without because it just seems like everywhere you look is corruption and collapse. Like every institution seems to have become not just corrupted, but almost the opposite of what it's supposed to be. So you get like the regulatory agencies actually just become, you know, they just end up bringing in the thing that they're supposed to be regulating, right? So it's like you end up with
that's all trapped, yes.
Right, everything just seems to be like the hospitals. They should be taking care of health, and what do? They like cut, burn, poison people primarily, and like rather than doing what they should do, or you know, it was like, oh cool, we're gonna have this like Make America Healthy Again initiative. It turns into like Monsanto's glyphosate. You're like, it's the opposite of everything. Just seems to turn into the opposite of what it's supposed to be. So it's like beyond corruption. Do you think that this like something new is going to birth out of this without hardship, or do you think we just have to go through the difficult times?
If we are going to go back to the kind of mature, you say the greatest generation, and I would have said the grown-ups, that it's been harder for my generation to grow up and harder for your generation after that to grow up. By grow up, I mean mature into real adults. And some of that was just 1950s trek about, oh, the man should do this and the woman should do that. It's not universal. But some of it really is, are you responsible? Are you responsible for your family? Are you responsible for your community? I'm responsible for my family, which is my company family here. I am perched in this community. I depend on other people to plow the roads and to do the things, and I don't do much with the town itself. Other people do. It's not my life because I'm an itinerant teacher, so I'm gone a lot of the time. I'm not blaming myself, but I am saying that, being a responsible adult, a lot of people aren't doing that now. And so if you want those responsible adults, I don't see any other way than the big hardship. Another depression, another war. That's what happened in the 30s. You had a depression, and then when the depression got over, it got over because of a war, started the whole industrial thing up again. We're not going to do that. We're going to have maybe another war. We're certainly going to have a time when 9 billion people on the planet are going to have a hard time eating. I don't see avoiding that. Yeah, but I'm an old man. The other way of looking at this, and I wish I had more of an answer because this is an idea that I've just been contemplating my young friends and thinking, is that there's another neoteny going on, that the young are going in and joining on a subconscious level on the internet, so that there is a much larger substrate of unconscious, and we're not aware of that because we're conscious. We're the conscious generation, and we're children of the greatest generation who are trying to be conscious. But these kids are building a collective unconscious that we can't see yet, and that will sustain them even though they don't have these skills. And they're the skills that we think are necessary, but we don't know the world that's coming. Right? It's going to be something we don't know almost by definition.
Sure, like what they have front load adaptations for that we don't perceive yet.
Right. So what is actually adaptive and what is essentially human, and we can't take it away. If we do take it away, we're no longer human. Those things are, I do believe those are going to be tested. And I believe the kids might be, that whole generation might be building something that we don't yet understand, that will emerge as it matures, that it's in the womb now, and you can't see it because it's in the womb, and maybe in some years it'll come out. But that's my hope also, that if humanity is going to transcend this thing, we're hearing a lot about AI now, and AI is going to, you were talking about robotics, robots are going to maybe replace all our jobs. Great. In the industrial world, you defined yourself by your work. If you ask an American, what do you do? They're going to tell you their work. They're not going to tell you their artistic pursuit or that they go bowling on Tuesday night. They're going to tell you their work. And your work is not going to define your value anymore. It's your engagement. It's your connections. I don't know. I think feeling is going to be the thing, because the internet is so far relentlessly audiovisual. I teach a kinesthetic art, how to use your hands on somebody else's body in a very particular way. I refused during COVID to certify people over the internet. You can't do that. In an audio-visual medium, I need to feel your hands on my body. It's a kinesthetic thing. Now, you can imagine some blanket that I could put over my shoulders and somebody in Australia could do this to another blanket and it would happen to me. You know, they're doing that with surgery now and things like that. So I can imagine it. But it hasn't happened yet.
It's not there yet.
So, right now, you want job security, become a massage therapist. Because, or a psychologist, somebody where human feeling, because I think human feeling is going to be the currency of the future, because it's going to be the irreducible. Everything audio-visual is changeable. And as Harari pointed out to us, money is the story we tell ourselves. And what happened in the Great Depression is we lost faith in that construct of money. And we now have a construct of money that's so far away from even the little pieces of paper that symbolized something that I was willing to take in return for my time because I could take those pieces of paper somewhere else. That's a story we tell ourselves. That story might be this lifetime that story goes out the window.
Seems like we're close.
Your work, all that you built up in your life, all the things that were supposed to be the American dream and the building of middle-class life and the result of the Enlightenment from back in the 1700s, all of that has reached its end now. We're going into something different. And I only see, you just asked two ways, and the two ways is that it's something spiritual and that all this inward going is going to build an unconscious or subconscious event that will then grow up, and I probably won't understand it because I'm of a different generation, but it will be the next thing that humanity does. Or if we're in the more pedestrian world where people have to eat and we're not in AI disappearing into the silicone world and carbon-based life forms are no longer necessary and all of that kind of thing, then I don't know, that's the end of history for humans. Too bad, because I liked this experiment and I really liked my fellow humans. Maybe next time we'll do a little better job, but whether that's inherent evil in people or just sort of an accident of how the whole thing unfolded, I have no idea.
What do you think happens? When you die, do you believe in a soul? Do you think you have a eternal peace? What do you think happens to your consciousness?
Well, for what it's worth, because this is just my belief, I believe consciousness is a material thing, and that there's so much of it around this planet, and that it's distributed to all the beings that are in some way participating in consciousness. And you can ask, trees, grass, dirt, I don't know, but in terms of humans.
Like biological antennas? For a consciousness that's already here, you
say? That's an antenna or a radio. It's kind of a Rupert Sheldrakean idea of morphogenetic fields and that kind of thing. But so I believe when I die that the energetic patterns that I have made will be part of this noosphere that's around the planet.
Sphere of consciousness.
Sphere of consciousness. I will be delighted if my personhood survives death. But I barely survived a divorce. A divorce nearly killed me. I don't expect to survive death. If you go through that, I don't know where you are as a psychonaut, but I've been to those experiences with psychoactive medicines that I certainly died in all
disassemble, right?
Disassembled and was a symbol thing of consciousness. And if I go through the bardo or whatever that is, and I come out in another body, I will either have forgotten or I will be delighted that is in fact the case. But I don't know that I've done any. I think people like Jesus or other enlightened folks might build a soul that would survive death.
Could get out.
That's kind of a Gurdjieffian idea. But I don't think that I've done all the work that would actually survive it. So I don't expect Tom to show up in any other form. Other than my vibe got to be part of the universe somehow.
Thanks for what you contributed while you were here.
Same for you, brother. Same for you.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure comes up?
No, I think we got this. I hope that people will take such joy in the body as I've been able, because I was certainly carefully educated by my parents to have neither a body nor emotions.
Right.
Feelings are something that other people have. Was the way I was brought up. And
Very New England.
Yeah, very New England. So I'm still doing the work to get out of that particularly autistic way of being that my parents put in me with all the good intentions in the world, and that I absorbed with all the good intentions in the world, but are now irrelevant and need to be taken out. So I really hope that people who are tied up in their careers or tied up in the problems that they have will take some joy in their bodies. And my own research is it will repay you time and again.
Yeah.
This investment is a very worthwhile investment.
Well said. Thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you, man. Hey, what people want to get your stuff? People want to get a tensegrity model, or they want to get your book.
Yeah. Please. The kinds of things we're doing. Thank you. www.anatomytrains.com is where we have all our courses. We have tons of online stuff because of COVID. We've put things up there. We are known for our dissections, which we do twice a year in Boulder, Colorado. You can see them on TV, which is like looking over the shoulder of somebody who's really good at it, because it's our guy in Boulder who does this. Or if you come to Boulder, you'll be doing the dissection yourself.
Prereqs for that?
Warm and have a checkbook.
Okay. You don't have to be a therapist. Because I think to do some of your work, you do need to have some background. Do I recall that?
Yes. Yeah. In order to enter our training program, which is my version of Rolfing, which is a program of sessions designed to reconfigure this fascial system, and particularly to get rid of the things that have accumulated over the years in those number 3 areas. And yes, there are requirements for people to come into that. Although we have in recent years taken in a lot of yoga teachers, Pilates teachers, and trainers who don't have a manual therapy license. They need to settle that with whatever jurisdiction they're working in. That's not our job. Our job is to train them, and what I've found is that some of the people who are in movement, who don't have any experience with their hands, can translate their movement experience into manual therapy very easily, and some cannot. So we admit those folks, and then if they're not up to it, we say, why don't you go get a little training in massage and then come back and study with us. But we train physios, osteopaths, chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, as I say, the movement people who come in. And then occasionally we get people in who are researchers, or I had an animator come in because he wanted to understand movement to do his animation.
Pretty beneficial,
Yeah. So it's been a wonderful journey to do that. But my people will be upset if I don't say that we have an app that we just put out, Anatomy Trains for All. So if you want to see some strange anatomy, like you want to see this bone, you were talking about the fascial bone. I have a bone where you can just tie a knot in the bone, things like that. These are all up on the website, and we hope people will either come to a course, enjoy our website, or come see us in a dissection. That's the...
I always tell people that your book should be, I just think anybody who does anything with the body, your book should be in their library, even if they don't understand it or read it. You could just look through the pictures of that book and almost get
it was designed
the gestalt. Yeah, you earlier you said something about being good with words, and I was thinking, well, you're good with the pictures too. You really nailed the balance there, because the reading is somewhat technical, but the imagery speaks volumes. And so I think just to put that plug in, I just think that's a crucial book. It's funny because I grabbed my book off the shelf. I was like, I should get him to sign this. And then I opened it up and you had already signed it. And I was like, oh yeah, I did that already. But I think that's an essential reading for everybody with a body. So I'll put that plug in there for Anatomy Trains.
Great. Well, we do have people all over the world. We have a Find a Practitioner thing on the site if you want to find somebody.
I did want to ask about that, because people want to work with somebody who's trained under you. There's a
Find a Practitioner thing, and sometimes if you email us, there's somebody that's not up on the list that we can point you to. Awesome. In terms of finding people who are skilled to do this kind of unraveling. I wish there were more people skilled at this kind of unraveling. I was just recently doing some work with a bunch of people who were very well trained physios and in that orthopedic world, and they just went, we did not get this in school. We just did not get this kind of point of view. Because if you're thinking of the body as a car, then you're thinking of what part to replace. If you're thinking of the body as a tensegrity structure, it's a set of relationships. And it's the relationships that are important, not the thing. It's how are you going to deal with the sets of relationships in the body, and that's what I'm hoping to. I'm working. I figure I have about 10 years left in me. I'm trying to build a faculty that will carry this thing on.
I want to say that you're pretty blessed to have seen so much change from so many people. The change from their work happens long after they're gone, and
you can get a lot done if you are willing for somebody else to get the credit.
Well, I think a lot has happened in your lifetime with your work, and that's pretty cool to get to see, because obviously it will become more and more mainstream over time. That's the direction it's trending in.
I hope so.
I'm glad that you haven't had to struggle in obscurity with this. It seems like the world's embraced it to a degree that is, it's cool to see.
It is very interesting. If you don't mind one more story, I just went this spring I was invited to a tongue tie conference. We've been talking about how the jaw was getting smaller. Well, maybe one effect of that is that children are being born with more tongue ties. Whatever the reason, children
That's where they release that tissue from under the tongue.
The frenulum under the tongue is too short for the baby to latch properly onto the mother. Mastitis, failure to thrive, lots of things follow on from this. So it's the midwives, the old midwives of Europe, would keep a long fingernail. And just if the kid couldn't latch.
That's cool. Give it a little cut.
It's a lot less than circumcision, let me tell you. And because it's very little blood, it hurts for a few minutes, and then the baby, put the baby right back on the nipple. So I see the argument for that, and then of course it got medicalized, so then you need a procedure, and then it's not going to happen for several weeks because the procedure has to be gone through. But the procedures are surgical and, not somebody's dirty fingernail going under your tongue. But in this tongue tie conference, we had dentists, orthodontists, surgeons, osteopaths, orthopods, physiotherapists, speech therapists, lactation consultants, doulas, midwives, and all massage therapists and acupuncturists and all. I love gatherings like that, where everybody's gathered, but they're all different professions. They all have different lingo. They all have different argot language in their things, and that's a really good opportunity to make people talk together. You have to use the same language. You can't use this term for this when these people are over here. You need to be able to talk to each other. It's the same thing, or you're saying two different things, but it's actually you're saying the same thing, stretch, but it's actually two different things that you're doing, and that needs to be distinguished. We don't have a tree of spatial medicine, the medicine of the fascia of the body moving, the way we have a tree for psychological medicine and a great big tree for chemical medicine. What we have is yoga, CrossFit, all these things are shooting up like little shoots out of the forest floor. They have to combine into a tree, and that's what I am grateful to have been able to be a part.
Wrap them all in a fascial sheath.
And send them down the tube.
Well, Tom, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate the work you do. Thank you very much.
Great. This has been very enjoyable, Daniel. Thank you.